how do we thread the needle between beating back some of the false narratives about Black men flocking to Trump, while at the same time making clear that we know, to use the VP's words, that Black men aren't in anybody's pockets?
The results from the survey you just mentioned do comport with the findings from the Black Voter Project data. Overall, Black men do support Trump at higher rates than Black women. Back in April, that number was around 20%. It dropped to about 17% with Harris on the ticket, so a slight decline in Trump support among Black men, but it is significantly higher than Black women. There's a lot of different sort of anecdotal reasons as to why that might be, having to do with sort of patriarchy and understanding of Trump as maybe a business leader, these things that, again, have been floated out there as GOP talking points for years now. When looking at these numbers, especially among younger Black men, they are a bit inflated in the survey world because unless you're looking particularly at sort of this likely voter sample, you're going to get a lot of people in there suggesting that they support Trump who aren't actual voters, who haven't voted in a while. My data suggests that a good portion of the Black Trump support is coming from people who didn't vote in 2020 or in 2016, so they didn't vote for him before, but they still sort of, when asked these questions on the survey, tend to pick Trump over the other candidate.
There are more Black men in favor of President Trump than Black women. There are more Black women in favor of Vice President Harris than Black men. Let's take a look.
They are actively out here villainizing Black men for not wanting to vote for Kamala Harris. They think they own us.
The women that are telling Black men that they have to vote for Kamala Harris, it is going to remind Black men of every bitter baby mama.
I don't think Kamala should be in the position as Biden. I think he needs to find someone else.
They offered me $10K for an interview with Kamala Harris. I don't want your money.
I think she if she anything, she like Black and Indian, but she's not really like from that life. You know what I'm saying? Like she didn't grow up the Black life. You know what I'm saying?
I believe us as Black men are suffering from misinformation. Look at exactly who you showed on that screen. These people do not know what the issues or know what even they want from the presidential nominees or anything like that.
This notion that Trump is getting any sense of Black support is completely gone now with Harris at the top of the ticket. We saw a dramatic jump in both favorability and Black vote share. Switching from Biden to Harris, favorability jumped 19 points. Great shifts in support from Black men and Black women. Favorability and vote share also jumped tremendously amongst those who were lower educated, those who identified as independent, and those who had strong views on abortion, namely opposition to Dobbs. We saw a shift generally in how Black people view the Democratic Party. When asked in April how welcoming the Democratic Party is to Black people, 28% saw the party as very welcoming. That jumped up to 36% now, and even higher, 38% of Black people in swing states feel like the Democratic Party is extremely welcoming to Black people. So just having Harris at the top of the ticket also changed views of the party itself. And then Black views of Biden also improved across the board. So favorability, the job he's doing as president, all of those things, Black people are viewing him far more favorable now that he's remained as president, but not necessarily the top of the ticket.
The things that these young men, all African-American men under 40, were saying about Vice President Harris caused me to see even more so how terrible of a job we have done, that is the older generation, at teaching these younger people what white supremacy is, especially because these young men had no idea why white supremacy should be the starting point of any conversation when it comes to whether or not you're going to vote for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris.
I'm a conservative because I truly believe in the individualistic approach to the problems that we see within the Black community or in America. Think about it, Black Wall Street, Harlem Renaissance, all that time, we was doing great. But when the policies came in and started destroying the Black community slowly and slowly.
I think you'll notice a theme of dissonance. On the one hand, for example, Topher endorses an individualistic approach to solving the problems we face as a community. But on the other hand, he points to Black Wall Street, communities that I would consider on the Mount Rushmore of Black collective power. And he points to them as times we should look back on with admiration. And the question is, which one is it? Is it rigid individualism where we get it out of the mud on our own? Or is it about creating communities where we work together to build our collective resources?
I was living better when Trump was in president. I had more money when Trump was in president. So, it seems as though there is one particular entity that is trying to destroy the country and cripple the country. And Who is that? Who's that? That would be the Democratic Party, the more liberal party that does not align with my values per se.
They are suffering from disinformation, and that disinformation has them distracted from the thing they should be focused on more so than anything else, and that is white supremacy and not the price of eggs and bread. I hate to inform this young man, but when you become a supporter of white supremacists, you made yourself a fool. You just became Boo-Boo the fool, because you're putting in the hands of people the knife that they're going to use to cut your throat and the throats of your family, your friends, and so forth. These folks don't understand what we're up against because they're too young. All you got to do is just go to Google, type in White House fact sheet, and put the word black, and a web page will come up from the White House that shows this long list of accomplishments that the Biden and Harris administration did for the African American community, like billions of dollars in HBCUs.
Black Wall Street was Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Greenwood District, where black people built their own community, had their own self-sustained community, beautiful economy, making it for themselves, and white people destroyed it. Yeah. It wasn't policy. It was white people.
Well, it wasn't white people. It was
no. Let's be very clear. It was white people. No.
It was those white people.
It was white people in that community. Absolutely.
Exactly.
So you can't say it's policy when when black people do what they need to do and build for themselves, and white people destroy it.
Black Wall Street rebuilt themselves after that. 4 years after that, Black Wall Street rebuilt everything they had, and they prospered for the next 40 years until policy came in and destroyed it because they decided to build a freeway over their town, and that destroyed. So what I'm saying is, if we look at policy and the cultural essence of most things, right? It's not just policy, it's culture. All those policies have not done what they promised. Would you agree?
I would not agree.
So you think we're better off as black people now than we were before LBJ passed those policies?
Yes, brother, we can vote without the threat of violence. Are you talking about the Civil Rights Act of 1964? Is that what you're describing as a negative thing?
I'm not saying the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was, I'm talking about...
That's LBJ, I just want to be clear. That's LBJ, who you said, were we better off before LBJ? LBJ signed the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
I'm talking about the war on poverty.
I just want to answer that one. I want to answer that specific one first. Was the Civil Rights Act of 1964 bad thing?
I agree with the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Thank you.
But at the same time, I'm also, put like this, I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery.
I feel as though if he were to lose, then we would be on our way to a communist country.
I must say that Trump is the one who is close friends to one of the biggest communist countries in the world, Vladimir Putin. I mean, Trump is the one who is a big supporter of one of the biggest communist leaders in the world. I don't understand when they say that.
A more inclusive and racially diverse Republican Party could be a good thing. American conservatives and Republicans have made the lives of black people difficult on purpose. From the Southern strategy to welfare queens to anti-woke, anti-DEI stuff today, American conservatives have galvanized their white base by making the lives of black people harder. It could be a good thing to see more black Republicans if it means that the Republican Party is becoming actively hostile to the racists who have called that party their home for the last 60 years at least. Make American politics inhospitable to racists. I'm all in on that platform. But the reality is that racists, or at least racism enablers, were present and accounted for at the RNC. They were given stage time, had exclusive access, and seemed central to the whole operation.
If you vote for Trump, you vote for your race to get annihilated. Like, he already ready to give police total immunity, you know what I'm saying, to take us out. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not going around killing white people.
Right.
When they see white people, they are comfortable. Soon as they see somebody that's black, for some odd reason, they're startled. We got a gun somewhere, we got to. Something gotta be wrong. Notice there ain't no black kids shooting up no schools around this bitch.
Right.
We shooting up, you know, little black kids shoot up where they go to. Like, man, fuck, man, we in the hood, man, I shoot this bitch up, club up, like, we gonna shoot some shit. We gonna shoot shit that we ain't come to shoot. You feel what I'm saying? We ain't we got a target, but we don't know where to target at.
Right.
We shooting everything but the target. That's what black people do. We'll rather fuck our own people up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we ain't going against no police, none of that shit. You might have one every blue moon that, you know what I'm saying, a little tough guy, you know what I'm saying? Right. But we be like, we already know, like, them folk is against us. Like, we already know that. Like, I ain't never seen you do nothing to my people a day in your life, but I know you're bad.
How is you black not represent for the black woman? Like, I can understand white people vote for Trump or any other race. You know what I'm saying? I can understand other races vote for Trump because they on some real. I'm going to vote for Kamala strictly because she black. I don't even know her motherfucking policies. I'm not finna not vote for the black lady, though. I don't know what type of people y'all is. I'm voting for the black woman, kid. It shouldn't even be nothing to think about. Oh, man, she's gonna take her gun. She not black. Stop the cap, man. Kamala is black, kid. She a ski-wee chick. Stop the cap, man. You already know she ski-wee. Shut the... Y'all sound like some conspiracy theory. She locked boys up. Trump just said Auntie's gonna give police free range on you dumbass niggas. He said it. It's part of his policy. Hey, man, whatever the police want to do, they can do it. You dumbass niggas, and y'all just geeked up. She married a white. I don't care about who she married. She a black woman.
You know, Donald Trump is the dumbest motherfucker, man, in the history of dumb motherfuckers, man. Now, he ain't said shit presidential at all. He is any motherfucker that listens to this stupid motherfucker and then wants to vote with him got to be as dumb and as stupid as he is. Some backward motherfuckers, man. The dude done been on TV here for almost an hour, half hour, whatever. Ain't said nothing political. He rambles on. He makes simple statements. You know, he's a very simple-minded motherfucker, man. He has no plan about how to move this country forward and unify this country. He represents the Ku Klux Klan. They all voted him in back when he first started running in politics. This dude he's not presidential. So if you vote for him, you one of the dumbest motherfuckers too. And I said what I said about you dumbass Donald Trump voting motherfuckers. If you vote for this stupid motherfucker here, you about as dumb as his ass is. And all y'all need to be lined up. For real. So him, his cronies, his homie that night that's finna be on TV. The whole Republican Party, man. And I said what the motherfucker I said, man. He's a hoe. Any motherfucker that vote for him is a hoe. Bitches, hoes, dumb, illiterate motherfuckers, simple-minded, easy, like tipping mitten. You know, that's how he talk, like a motherfucker who just learning how to read.
Tell me your thoughts on Kamala becoming president.
Listen, the minute Joe Biden endorsed, and I got dragged on the internet.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw all of the blogs.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody got mad at me because I'm supporting, not support her is a vote for Donald Trump.
Yes.
Now, everybody got these blogs about Kamala Harris record. Where's the energy for Donald Trump's record?
Listen.
In the racist things that he said in what is Project 2025?
That's correct.
Where are the videos about that?
Yes.
Everybody video dogging me off for supporting Kamala Harris, like you drinking the Kool-Aid and all these. Listen, man, I cannot believe that we are actually sitting here having this conversation, because after Barack Obama, I didn't think I would see nothing else like that again, not in my lifetime.
It's here.
It's here.
I was in the arena in Chicago. I was amazed to see white people crying over a black woman.
Yeah.
I thought I'd never see the day.
Yeah.
If y'all don't get on this Kamala train, you get ready to miss it. this is a historic, significant moment
Yeah.
for what America needs right now.
If you don't do this, if you're not targeting Black people specifically, you're really missing out on an opportunity here to capitalize on turning out the most loyal constituency to the Democratic Party. Black people could make the difference in states like Georgia, Pennsylvania, especially North Carolina, now that that's in play. But they're only really going to come out. You can only appeal to Black voters with messages that resonate with their experience. And so again, when the general abortion ad comes on, it's going to do some work, but it's not going to do as much work as a ad specifically directed towards Black people, that represents Black people, that has images of Black women or Black families in the ad, right? These are all things that really need to be taken into consideration that I'm not seeing as much as I would really like to. One of the main differences between Black people who supported Biden and those who support Harris is the strength in Black identity, where those who have a really high sense of their self-identity, their racial identity, had a dramatic increase in their support for Harris over Biden. And so again, I think there's an opportunity here for Harris to use her identity, but it seems like that's something that, similar to the Obama playbook, she's not necessarily wanting to lean heavily into. But it has to really be on the part of the campaign to make that connection happen, to show that she will be, a representative that the Black community can really lean into.
The fact of the matter is that we have a criminal running for president of the United States. And none of your Black asses, if you had that many charges, would be able to run for anything. You wouldn't even be able to get a job at McDonald's. So, let's just stop the games. Let's stop the BS. Donald Trump is a criminal. He has been found criminally liable in several courts. He has a case that's still pending in the state of Georgia. I've run for office before, and one of the first things they tell you is you cannot call election officials and ask them for more votes than the other guy. It's really against the law. He said, I need 11,574 more votes than the other guy. Come on, because Black folks have been what? Black folks have been criminalized on less evidence. So why are we even entertaining this?
Well, I do want to
really is insulting our intelligence. No, it's really insulting our intelligence.
Yeah.
We can't continue to use the narrative that Black men won't show up because it's a female. We have to give them the visual of a commander-in-chief. And I believe that Vice President Harris has done that quite well. I think it's up to Black women. I think it's up to white men. I think it's up to Asians, the LGBT community. How do you envision a woman as president?
One recurring theme of my work and the work around Black masculinity in general is the fact that Black men were never meant to occupy the role of man in America. Even as rights have been attained and progress has been made, Black men today are often faced with remnants of that message that we are not real men. We can imitate white manhood and masculinity. We can perform aspects of it, but we will always remain defective versions of it. Even as we clearly present all the features, both positive and negative, of manhood, the goalposts are moved or actions are taken to debase us in order to ensure that we are never comfortable in that role.
There's a lot of Black men in here, and I don't mean to, not talk to other people, but this is important. Our Black men, we got to get them out to vote. That's number one. Kamala's opponent promised a lot of things last time to the Black community that he did not deliver on. And we got to make sure we help Black men understand that. So that's why I'm here, to make sure I help Black men understand. First, get out and vote, and then vote for the next president of the United States, Kamala Harris.
What's up, everybody, and thank y'all for joining us tonight on Cutting Through the Culture. Our host, Quisha King, is not with us this evening. She just got married yesterday, so I imagine she's on her honeymoon. But you got the three fellas here tonight, and it's fitting because we are talking about this kind of tug of war over the so-called black male vote that we see going on. We see it being ramped up in these latter days leading up to the November 5th election. And it's getting interesting. So let me go ahead and bring up our panelists. We got Mr. Blanche Robinson and Mr. Chuck Littleton. How are y'all today?
What's up?
Great.
So first of all, let us start with this simple question. Blanche, are you going to be voting for Trump or Camilla in November?
I'm probably going to vote for Trump.
Think about your mama now.
What about you, Chuck? So we got Blanche for Trump. What about you, Chuck?
Oh, man. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and vote for the Don, man.
They kind of
but I'm ignorant. I'm low information. I'm stupid. I don't know anything. So
did you see
shame
in
on
this
me.
montage? Did you see especially in the latter few clips how they were talking about black men as though they're little, pet children? Like we got yeah. Magic Johnson up there. Look, folks, we got to get these black man. Y'all don't understand. We got to get them out the vote and tell them that Kamala is the only way.
Right. And they're just totally imperceptible. They have no idea how they come off, how condescending they and panderous they sound. It's just like it's just going right over their heads. But I guess that's what happens when you are, to quote Adam Smith, when you are so arrogant in your own conceit. You don't hear yourself.
Is this condescension with which these people speak toward black men, would you say that it's deserved?
Yes. I would say it's deserved because they talk to black men how black men have behaved. Very low character, very weak spinal cord, very just cowardly. So if you think about it, everyone's talking to black men like they aren't even in the room. It's like the black men are sitting in the room, everybody's just talking around them like, and Jamal and Tyrone and Ray Ray and Pookie, they just sitting right there like, and the crazy, and it's like, what they're saying is true is because you don't see the masses of black men being offended by this. Like the masses of black men are agreeing with this rhetoric. So that lets you know that what they're saying about black men is true. I mean, Magic Johnson got a whole son that is he more the transformer. He like the
a girly boy.
Galvatron,
My kids call folks like Magic Johnson's son girly boy.
Girly boy.
That's the word they came up with, or the phrase they came up with. But yeah, you had that one broad sitting up there saying,
canceled, Chad.
Hey, they're 5 and 6. I mean, they see something that looks odd, they say that's a girly boy. I mean, kids come up with these kind of things. But the you had that one broad sitting up there talking about how black men, they might not be comfortable with the idea of voting for a woman, but we have to show, like, I forget exactly how she worded it, but it's like, it's that same condescension. And it's like,
them a commander in chief, she said. Show them the commander in chief.
Right. And I guarantee they try. They focus group her. I mean, she has a whole team around her. But I think that Kamala Harris is just, first of all, I mean, she's lazy. She's entitled, doesn't think she really has to work for much. They tell her, what I mean, she keeps regurgitating the same lines, right? I'm sure her team, they when she's off camera, it's like, they're probably face palming as she's speaking, and then when she gets off camera, I guarantee you her handlers come, and when they're in private, they like, Kamala, we talked about this. You got to stop doing this. You got to stop doing that. You have to, stop with the laughter, stop with the nervous, cackling and all that kind of stuff. I mean, they're killing you online. They're making there are memes galore floating around the internet about you. You have to stop. You have to do this. You have to do that. And I really don't think that she put forth much effort to even try to present better. Because that's just it's not even beginning to touch, her issues, or her issues go much deeper than what I've just said. But just on a surface, I'm talking not even just barely grazing the surface. Part of her problem is she is just lazy, it seems to me, just does not care one iota, and thinks that, pretty much she's just like, from the looks of things, it doesn't seem to me, aside from when she was, flipping burgers at Mickey D's, right? Of course, this
For 2
McDonald's,
months.
that's right. I guess 2 months. I thought that McDonald's came on and made a statement and said that there's no record of her having ever been an employee, but she may have worked there for a month or so, but who knows, but she hasn't really had to work for much. And to me, she just seems very lazy, because I'm sure they tell her, but she doesn't care.
Did you have anything else, Blanche, before
No,
we switch the subject?
She's an idiot. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
I can't imagine her in court trying to argue a case. I just can't see it. Like I just can't. Like her and Ben Crump. I can't see these people having to do, like, based on how she is now. I just can't see her in the courtroom arguing a case and being coherent.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say this,
go ahead. Sorry.
She could argue a case that's probably already set up.
Mm-hmm.
Where the fix is already in. Then all she has to do is just say, this company is racist. It's like that.
Right.
But
so from a social justice perspective,
something. But an actual case where we have to have the burden of proof, you got to actually have evidence. No, there's no way. There's no way.
And the reason I say from a social justice perspective is because we have seen examples of her kind of cross-examination tactics, because she was on the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, which is responsible for actually, I'm gonna have to fact check myself on that, because I know at some capacity she was questioning Brett Kavanaugh whenever he was nominated to be a Supreme Court justice, and as well as Ketanji Brown Jackson. In fact, I'm pretty sure she was on that committee because Cory Booker was also on that committee, and they had that little weird, awkward interaction whenever Ketanji Brown Jackson was nominated. But so particularly as it relates to Brett Kavanaugh, she was asking these kind of rapid fire questions that is par for the course when it comes to this kind of Marxian relationship with the law, where they kind of exploit certain ambiguous language in the law. They kind of they find a way to basically present their case in such a way that if you are a casual observer of what it is you're watching, you would think that she knows her stuff, that she's doing quite well, and that she's brilliant. But if you are somebody who actually has a good handle on the law, or a good handle on what the role of the Supreme Court justice is, then you would realize that she's full of baloney, and that she is actually she's actually quite dangerous, because she wants for there to be this kind of the jurisprudence that she wants for her Supreme Court justices to have is this notion that the Constitution is living and breathing, right? And I don't want to get into an argument over. I don't think any of you would argue for a living, breathing Constitution. I think there's some nuance there, but and I think Justice Antonin Scalia, the late Justice Antonin Scalia, would his take on living, breathing Constitution versus textualism is that he himself was not a textualist in a literal sense. And why did I open up this can of worms? So I don't want to misrepresent what it was that he himself argued for in terms of whether he's a textualist or a living, breathing constitutionalist. And he would say that he was a textualist, but not in the literal sense. Let's put that to bed. So, but the thing is, because she is arguing from this place, this Marxian belief that we are supposed to have activist judges on the Supreme Court, she is going to basically try to present her case as if textualism is unconstitutional. And it's from that place that she was cross-examining Justice Kavanaugh. And when you look at her record as a DA, as a prosecutor, her role as prosecutor was very strategic in that she said this herself, that because she grew up the child of two civil rights activists who always took a position against the police, against the state, against the so-called system. Whenever she decided that she wanted to become a prosecutor, her parents and her family were confused by this, because our family, the Harris family, we have traditionally been against the police. And she had this idea of, well, no, what I will do is I will get into the system and I will infiltrate it and I will basically change it from within. And this is basically what she said in so many words. And so again, her cross-examination is not coming from a constitutionalist point of view. It's coming from a let me disrupt and dismantle and completely implode the system from within. And speaking on that note, when it comes to Kamala Harris, she has never been a leader of anything in a real true sense of the word. She's been able to, in this kind of Machiavellian type way, kind of finagle her way to the position that she is currently sitting. And she's never run a business. She doesn't know anything about the markets and about geopolitical affairs or anything of substance. She's just a figurehead. She represents symbolism, and that's what you saw in the montage with all these Negroes talking about, I'm voting for the sister, or I'm voting for the black woman for no other reason than she's black. Like, these are people who are interested in symbolism more than they are in substance. And that's quite troubling that you have grown adult men who are allured by the fact that here's a woman who doesn't represent our republic, this country of ours that people are flocking to from all ends of the earth, all corners of the earth, because there's something about our constitutional republic, or what's left of it, that has meant freedom and prosperity, material comfort for people from all walks of life. That's what America represents to some degree. So you have this person who is philosophically against the idea of America, who represents an ideology that's actually quite hostile to the idea of America. And you have grown adult men and women who are willing to vote for her because of the symbolism that she represents. It's quite troubling. I don't know how you come out from that. So anyway, Blanchard, Chuck, do any of y'all want to respond to that before I change the subject?
Well, I just want to say one thing. I'll let Chuck do one thing. So if Kavanaugh was able to fire questions back at Kamala Harris, that's when the room gets flipped upside down. So she's in a position where she has a loaded gun and he's ducking behind cover. But if he's able to have a gun and shoot back at her, then you get exposed. That's what I'm talking about in a courtroom where it wasn't any leverage. She would get exposed immediately. Like, so these people really only have these positions because it's set up for them. Any kind of neutral playing field, I'm talking about, it can be a playing field at 60-40, they get exposed. It's usually 90-10. It's usually 90-10. But if it's 60-40, it's over.
I agree. Go ahead, Chuck.
No, when I watched the montage, and this was the last thing I had wrote down, these black men and women saying the things that they're saying about black male voters and whatnot. And what they don't realize is that, and I don't know if we're in the throes of it now. Maybe it's the beginning stages of this sort of overthrow. And this is what they have essentially done to themselves, because now the revolution is coming for them. See, when you sit up there as a black person, and the black, and it has taken long enough, and we can get into the factors and the different variables as to why these things seem to be changing or shifting just a tad. Again, I'm not trying to say that, oh my God, we've reached this point, because there are a lot of issues with, I mean, just a lot of blacks and their perspective on things, even a lot of, so-called black conservatives, as we saw with the man on the street interview with the gentleman there. I think he's a popular content creator, and he was kind of getting tripped up and was stumbling when the guy was pressing him on some things. And I was like, dang, he just doesn't, he doesn't quite get it. But nevertheless, blacks are sitting back seeing, and they're saying, well, here is your representation, right? This is your black bourgeoisie, for lack of a better term, right? And they're saying that you yourself are trafficking in, right, a lot of the white supremacists and, racists and systemic oppression. You're trafficking in a lot of this rhetoric, and, doesn't seem to be that you yourself are having to, you hit some sort of glass ceiling. It seems to me, it seems to a lot of people that you don't seem to be suffering in the same manner as the people to whom you claim to represent are suffering. And so this is what a lot of blacks, particularly a lot of black men, are seeing this black liberal Democrat elite. And they're sort of seeing this kind of schism where your rhetoric isn't adding up in terms of, you personally, right? And how you live your life and the things that you've been able to achieve. And so now what you're seeing is with a lot of blacks, it's not that, these people are becoming, these sort of, doctrinaire, conservatives, these kind of Lockean classical liberals, it's not that. It's more so that they are becoming distressed and sort of let down by the likes of men like Magic Johnson and Ricky Smiley and others. And they're saying that you all have been telling us to support liberals, support liberal causes, to vote for Democrats and such and so forth. And it just hasn't panned out well. And so now you're seeing, like I mentioned, the revolution is beginning to come for them. They put these ideas out. This is what leftism does. And now you're sort of seeing, right, the lumpen, as they say, the rags, the ragged, the ghetto proletariat is now coming for those who used to be considered part of the revolutionary vanguard, like your Al Sharptons of the world, your Jesse Jacksons of the world, and so on and so forth. And now you're seeing this uprising. And to me, like I said, it's probably not that black men are becoming more conservative. Perhaps some of them are. And again, maybe that's a separate conversation. But I think there is this frustration with the black bourgeoisie, or the black representative that's telling them to do these things that, for better or for worse, for one reason or another, isn't quite. They're not quite getting what they believe that they paid for. And again, I'm not saying that it's this light bulb moment that is really happening. I think there are a lot of factors going on, but I think that's one of them. And I think that's what a lot of so-called black elites don't seem to get. They don't seem to understand is that you made this bed. Now you have to lie in it. You did this to yourself because you are a part of the establishment now. The same exact establishment that you're railing against is the same exact establishment that seems to have accepted you. And so you become part of that. And now I have to get you too. Right. You can't say that the legal system is unjust and the legal system does this and that to black men and black folks by and large, but then turn around and say Donald Trump is a criminal. You can't do that. Right. Because if the criminal system is unjust, right, then OK, then it's unjust. But you can't say, well, it's unjust toward black men, but what they're doing to Donald Trump is fair. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth. It doesn't work that way. But again, these people are imperceptible because they are arrogant in their own conceit.
Yeah. Great points. So, so Chuck had some viral moments over the past couple days. I wanted to. So this interview that Chuck was a part of, it was more of a discussion than it was an interview. Am I right in saying that, Chuck?
Yeah. It was more of a discussion. I can give a quick background and synopsis on what happened if you like, but it's okay.
Yeah. Before you do that, I just wanted to. So anyway, so the interview was 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. It was around the time that Will Smith infamously slapped or
whatever it was, right?
yeah. Chris Tucker. No, what am I saying? Chris Rock.
Chris Rock.
I get the black comedians mixed up.
They're the same.
Hillary Clinton said they all look alike.
So
she said Eric Holder, and she said Eric Holder, and what was it, Corey? But who did she say that? I forgot. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So he had a couple of viral moments and videos that were shared from that interview. Here's one of them.
The 1960s occurred and the Great Society, when we began to buy into social justice, is when our progress began to plateau. And you especially began to see this divide amongst blacks themselves.
Since I wasn't around in the 60s, right? But I've heard stories from my family and loved ones and shit was tough on niggas. It was tough on niggas. I'm not surprised that niggas...
It was tough on niggas. I wonder how many people got murdered in Detroit back in 1960 versus how many niggas got killed last year. All this shit we talk and we hear about racism, the KKK, and all this bull. We have accomplished something the Ku Klux Klan could never have done. I don't give a damn all the racism, all the bullshit. You ain't entitled, period. We may have been oppressed, we may have been under the gun, but we carried ourselves with more dignity and respect and love and appreciation for one another. In spite of everything that we were going through. We had dignity and class. Now look at this shit going on today. White people ain't thinking about your ass because you sabotaged yourself.
Everybody is definitely everybody plays a part, but it's not happenstance. And to your point, the Marxists is like, nigga, it was a plan. It's been a plan for a long time for this exact same thing to happen. So it can't be like y'all did it to yourselves if the whole thing is...
You did it because you are responsible for your education. You are responsible for knowing the things that you need to know in order to make yourself something in this world. Yeah, them people may have a plan that at the end of the day, every man is born with free will. But they know that they get all type of social status, credit, and accolades if they can go before a group of disgruntled people and represent to the mainstream on behalf of them, their grievances. It's like trust upon the leader and I will ensure that you have what it is that you need to have because of those people over there have done you wrong. So I'm going to take from them and bequeath it to you. But it never quite makes it to them. But got all this to say about America and about white people. But they sitting up there bumping elbows with the very same white folk that share their brain because they all think the same. They all a bunch of leftists. All of them. And I'm gonna keep saying it, bro.
And here's the other one.
Doesn't have any power.
Chuck, I don't agree with that. People were outwardly racist while Trump was in office. He gave them white people.
Like who?
He made it comfortable for people to be outwardly racist about how they fit. Chuck,
no, he didn't.
The climate was a lot different.
Studies came out about the racial divide trending in the wrong direction in 2013 when Barack Obama was entering his second term when the Black Lives Matter movement jumped off. Let's not make it seem like Donald Trump led to this big increase in the racial schism in this country. That happened under Barack Obama. Since we want to go there, since we want to go there.
But did it happen?
Since we want to go, it happened. Yes, it did happen. Yeah. We talk about one-way aggression. You allowed to be openly racist towards one particular group of people, and it's white people. Let's call a spade a spade.
White dudes are pussies.
White men are the issue.
White men are the biggest threat to America. They are.
You got analysts on MSNBC, CNN openly referring to Donald Trump and his voters as Nazis. Nowhere in popular media do you see white people saying the kinds of things that you see people saying about white people on national television, from Joy Reid, Trevor Noah, Don Lemon, over and over again.
But Chuck,
you don't see that anywhere else.
Because you can't get on mainstream media and make light of other races doesn't mean that the racial climate is still not what it is.
The reason why the racial climate is what it is because that's what critical race theory seeks to do. It seeks to polarize for the purpose of finding people who are sympathetic to your cause. And you keep on dividing one group onto itself until you create a group of disenchanted, angry, dysfunctional people that you can then use for the purpose of your liberation. That's not my words. Those are the words of Herbert Marcuse himself. Anybody talking about race in this country or talking about critical race theory and have never heard the writings or the words of Herbert Marcuse, you cannot sit at this table and talk because you don't know the theory, you don't know the science.
But like somebody never heard of them, but in their own eyes, they look out into the world and think, yo, that shit is fishy to me.
I don't give a damn about what you go out in the world and see.
A racial slur was spray painted on the front gate.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is dealing with a racist
Noose found in the garage stall of Bubba Wallace
See, this is all about narrative weaving and storytelling because they play upon people's emotions and how they feel. If I go to a doctor and tell a man, I feel like I'm having a heart attack, the doctor is going to run a specific set of tests to get to what is actually happening. He has to know the truth. He can't do medical procedures upon me based upon what I tell him I feel. He has to know for a fact. He has to know what he's talking about.
So he has to do a battery of tests.
He has to do a test because if he does the wrong treatment to me based upon what I feel, he could kill me.
And society is dying.
As the kids would say, Chuck cooked. I think you roasted there. Actually, that word is already reserved. But anyway, so this again was 2 years ago. And Chuck, you've been on this for a very long time. But those two videos, the last one I just played in particular, went wildly viral. I shared it on X, Instagram, and TikTok, and they were wildly shared and liked from the clips that I shared. But then two people were ripping the video and sharing it on their own. I think Alex Jones said something about it. Brandon Tatum said something about it. David Harris Jr., a lot of people with big platforms. Mm-hmm. So the fact is, nobody can say these things as good as Chuck Littleton. And I say that not to puff up his head or to flatter him or anything like that. I say it because it's genuinely true. When it comes to Chuck, when it comes to Blanche, when it comes to Quisha, I mean, the reason why these three individuals are doing this show every Sunday is because I like the way that they say things. I like the way that they're able to put things into perspective. And I think this information is needed. But Chuck, I mean, I just want to give you your flowers, as the blacks would say, because because you deserve them. I mean, I don't know where those two gentlemen are today. Again, that clip was shared, or that those clips are from a 2-year-old interview. But talk to us about that interview for one, and two, where those individuals are today in terms of what they believe about race relations in America, so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's funny that you asked that because I plan on posting something on my Instagram page tomorrow, just to give more context for people who may not get to see what I'm about to see now. So what you saw there, that was from a podcast. Those two gentlemen, two guys I've known for years. We actually went to high school together. They're a little older than me, but we all graduated from Cass Tech High School. We went to high school together, and they do their own show. They had a show called Shop Talk Podcast, and that was the name of the show, Shop Talk Podcast, right? And another mutual friend of ours, we all, everyone, you get older, everybody sort of goes in their own direction. And my best friend actually was the best man in my wedding. He brought me in and say, hey, and the guy, the darker skinned guy that had on like the teal or green colored like hoodie or sweatshirt, he my friend brought me to him and say, hey, his name is Jason. He said, hey, Jason, my boy Chuck, like, man, you got to get him into the studio. We gotta come together. We got to do a pod. We got to start doing, we got to get his message out. We got to get him out here. We got to do. And I'm just sitting there like, all right, man, I guess I'll do it. At the time, I didn't have a Facebook page. I didn't have MySpace. I'm old enough to remember Black Planet and all that stuff. I didn't have any of that because I hated the whole concept of social media. I hated it. But they kept pushing it. And I said, all right, fine, cool, man. We can start doing a podcast. And so like, okay, well, why though? What do you have to say? What do you have to offer? Why should we even have you? And so we started to have a lot of these conversations privately, right? And as time would go on, right, there was like this respect. It was like, oh, okay, I see. Like this guy, this is a serious guy. He seems to be. He puts in the work. He puts forth he puts forth the effort, right, in order to try and understand, right. I mean, as best he can, and so we respect that, right. And so a lot of people, when they saw the clip, they were like, "Oh man, I want to see the whole show. I want to see the debate and this and this and that." you know, I hate to disappoint, but there were moments where it got heated, right? Like that. Cause when I hear something, I'm coming for you. I'm going at you. But those guys are actually my friends, and it's funny, they're not these like hard line left wing ideologues. That's not what they were. That's not who they are now. As a matter of fact, especially like my friend Jason, who had on the green, he's actually more in line with us, and I think that has a lot to do with our communications over the last 4 or 5 years. I think he has become more conservative over the years. But to his credit, you know, I may have helped him grow politically, but he helped me grow in terms of like my podcasting. If you notice, when you look at that clip, you can see the black and blue those sound, what do they call those things? I don't know the language. Those things they put on the wall for the sound. If you look at it, you can see it in the background in the clip.
Panels.
Right, those panels. And if you go to my YouTube channel, you look at some of my YouTube uploads, you see that black and blue background. I'm in his studio, and he let me come and rock out in his studio for free. Right. He's the one who kind of gave me my footing in this social media YouTube game and taught me a lot of different things. And, you know, before I met Chad, like Jason would do a lot of my reels for me. So when I would go on to his show, like, cause he actually made the same clip that Chad posted, you know, when I was talking about how blacks have more respect and more dignity, more class. Jason actually made that same reel himself for me. If you go to my Instagram page, I have that same reel. Of course, you know, Chad spiced it up a little bit better. No disrespect to my boy Jason. Chad did a little bit better, but Jason actually extracted that reel and posted it. And I think he even posted it on his own Instagram account and gave it to me. And so, you know, and in some of my earlier YouTube uploads where there's one where I'm sitting down and I have a Toronto Blue Jays baseball jersey on with a hat, and I'm getting asked questions just like an interview type style. Like my friend Jason, he's the one behind the camera actually asking me those questions, right? And so this whole thing, like, Chuck, man, you could be big on social media, you need to get out. Like those two guys were the ones that helped
So
me
they were
get
so
to
they
where
were
I am.
receptive.
They were receptive.
You can't tell from the clips that they are.
You can't tell from the clips. And so I just want to give them their flowers. It's not so, you know, so much so that I feel the need, because they're big boys, you know, they're big boys, they're grown men. I mean, they can handle it, right? But it's just to kind of give, because, you know, it's just, we want to crush the left, we want to defeat liberal. Yeah, we want to do that, right? We want to win, we want to crush the other side, but I can't crush the other side at the expense of my honor and at the expense of my integrity, because those two are actually two good guys. And they brought me on the show not to debate with me, but they brought me on as a quote unquote expert to give them information on what CRT was, because at the time there was all of this conversation was going on about critical race theory. And so they wanted to bounce ideas off of me to find out what critical race theory is, because based upon our interactions over like I said, the previous 4 or 5 years, they said, okay, Chuck's a guy who could probably give us some insight on critical race theory. Let's have him on the show. And prior to that, my friend Jason sent me some information that a scholar, some of you may have heard of her, a woman by the name of Carol Anderson, who wrote the book White Rage. And we were really doing a response to Carol Anderson's book, White Rage, and her assessment and opinions on what critical race theory is. And so that's what the conversation was really all about. So that's how that whole thing kind of played out. But again, Chad, he knows how to take those moments, right? And this is the part, you know, where it really was good. And so that's kind of like where it went there. So that's the whole background of it. It wasn't so much a debate as it is a conversation, and they wanted to bring me on because they knew that our boy Chuck knows his stuff. So let's ask him and let's get it on camera, you know. So that's what that was. You muted, Chad.
And truth be told, that's how reels work. I mean, you take a moment from a long form podcast or live stream, you post that to social media, and then people want to know anxiously, where's the rest of this? I want to see the rest of this. And the fact is, when it comes to long form content is only for a niche crowd, because most people aren't willing to sit there for an hour to 3 hours to watch a full stream. which is weird because, you know, Joe Rogan has one of, if not the most popular podcast in the world. And his go for anywhere from 2 to 3 hours, sometimes 4 hours, depending on the show. And so I don't know. I still don't know how I feel about, you know, if whether it's true that people just aren't interested in that, in long form content like that. But the fact is, it is true that when it comes to reels tend to do better than live stream because you can scroll it, you can easily consume it, or, you know, assess it and keep it scrolling, keep it moving. But, you know, to your point, it was an interesting conversation to see someone of your mindset juxtaposed to individuals, to men who at the time believed what the rhetoric is as it pertains to social justice, as it pertains to systemic racism, as it pertains to some of the I don't even know how to put this, Chuck. What would you say the because you made a very good point in the show where, you know, it is, while it is true that these ideologues are not teaching in a potent way critical race theory in the classroom, while they can technically say that, they are teaching the results of and I don't even know if results is the right word. Maybe you can come up with a better word than I can right now, but they are teaching some of the remnant of critical race theory in the classroom. They may not be telling you this is critical race theory and I'm teaching it to you, but they are more or less teaching children how to think with a critical race theory kind of framework, or foundation, if you will.
Yeah.
Explain that if you can.
Yeah, well, you said it, and that's what they do. It's the Marxification of our educational system. I borrowed that phrase from James Lindsay, as a matter of fact. But yes, this is what this is what Karl
I like
Marx.
your word better. you use the word Sovietizing.
Soviet. I think that's what I said. Which
I prefer that one. But go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, but that's it. It's funny, like I said, that Chad just so happened to come across that show. I don't know if the algorithm kind of fed it to him. But I was talking to Chad on the phone, and he's just like, "Yeah, man, I saw some show you did a while ago, and I'm watching it right now. It seemed like it's pretty good. I'll let you know what I think once I had a chance to finish it." Then next thing you know, I got a notification like Chad O. Jackson wants to collaborate with you on the reel. And I'm like, all right, cool. And the rest is, and here we are. But it's been a while since I haven't watched that show, and so I don't even remember like much of what I said.
Have you been hit up by any of the bigger name folks that I just mentioned to like come on their show or anything like that?
Well, you know, like you said, the real caught fire. My boy Blanchard reposted it, and I noticed that the MAGA Hulk, I think his real name is Stephen Davis. Just saw a lot of people stripping it, reposting it. The Lexit movement Instagram page that has a sizable following, they were reposting it. And so I was just like, all right, cool. You know, I just thought it'd be like a little thing real quick. And I laid down, took a little power nap to get ready for the show. And I woke up and I got a direct message from our friend Kevin Tony. And Kevin Tony.
Say Candace Owens.
No, not her. Kevin Tony. And because I think all three of us have been interviewed by Kevin Tony. And I don't know, he was the first in line. He sent me a DM and he said Brandon Tatum reposted you. And he didn't even know what he was talking about. I was like, what you mean he covered, he said something. Forgot the word he used. So I looked and I saw like the photograph of the thumbnail, and I just woke up out of my sleep. And it's the first thing I saw when I reached over and grabbed my phone. That's the first thing we do when we wake up, right? We reach over and grab our phones. And I was like, oh, wow, really? So I went to Brandon Tatum's YouTube channel, and I saw that there I was, big thumbnail sitting there looking like, you know, sunglasses indoors, you know, don't judge me. You know, so look, I had to look cool, right? So, yeah, and I saw it, and I was like, oh, wow. You know, and it's funny because I haven't even listened to the video. So I don't even know what Brandon Tatum said. He could be dogging me for all I know. Of course, I'm being tongue-in-cheek. I'm pretty sure he's not, but I haven't even listened to the video. I haven't even watched it. But I just said,
he gave you your flowers, as a Black would say.
Yeah. So so that's what happened. But no one has
He gave you your phone.
Yeah. So I mean, there may be something sitting in my, because I get emails from time to time and stuff like that, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't always read them right away. I'll get to them eventually, but sometimes my DMs or my emails, they'll sit there for days, even weeks, before I even read them or even respond, because that's just how I am, because I really want to give people something real, something honest, or something unique and personal. And it takes time, because you don't want to give people fluff and something trivial. You really want to engage. At least that's how I want to do it. And so it's tough, because the more people reach out, it's almost like the less connected you are to people, the larger so it's like the Pink, when Pink Floyd had the album The Wall, it's like the bigger you get, the more isolated you become from everyone. So it's the catch-22. So I don't always respond right away, but there might be some messages out there that I haven't even read yet, like as I speak.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
When I posted it to X, some people didn't know who you were. Well, most people didn't know who you were, and some people thought that you were
Kingface.
That you were Kingface, and this is Kingface right here. He died a few years ago, and they thought that that you were him, and that was a never before seen video. And I mean, I do see the favor. I do see that y'all favor each other a little bit, but yeah, definitely not Kingface. No disrespect to Kingface, but Chuck is far more brilliant. Blanche, what were your thoughts when you saw the clips?
I mean, I thought the clip was good. I mean, I just again, I didn't know it was 2 years ago, and I found out it was 2 years ago, I think, from Chuck when I had texted him. And so that kind of put things into a better context. But I mean, I would still say that most of the pushback to what Chuck is saying is the programming and the propaganda. And so when he's speaking from outside of the program. He's speaking from outside of what you call the matrix. It's like Morpheus talking to the person that's in the matrix, but he's only there visiting. So when I'm listening to these guys, I responded to one of the videos. I was making fun of the guys because it was like zooming in on the guy, the light-skinned guy, said like he was upset, so like he was a little bitter. So I was making fun of him, and I was making fun of the guy in the green sweatshirt. But
it's all good. Like I said, they big boys. They can handle it. It's okay. But I actually reached out to my boy and told him, I said, bro, I'm gonna give you. I'm gonna try to. He's like, he like, man, I'm happy for you. He said, if you do, you do. You don't, you don't. Either way, I'm happy that you kind of you expanding and your profile is starting to grow. I'm because again, he was there in the beginning. He's the one who really helped push me out there. But I say, dang, Jason, I say, but they don't know the full story. They don't know the full you. I wasn't talking to Charlamagne and DJ Envy. I was really talking to guys that were receptive. But again, it's the Blatrix. They did a lot of that stuff. It's like background noise. White supremacy and what. It's just you as a black person, you kind of come up in this sorry to cut you off, Blanche. I'll let you jump back in just real quick. There's the culture, the film, the movies, the music, your elders, like the guy in the montage talking about how the old folks have dropped the ball because a lot of younger black men are going over to Trump. And you hear it from your elders, you hear it in the barbershops, in the educational system, and so on and so forth. I just had anyway, I won't even go there. I'll share that with you guys later, what I was about to say. But anyway, so it's like background noise. And so they kind of just almost as a reflex kind of regurgitated a lot of these talking points. But then when I really pushed them on it and asked them to really think about it and to go deep, it's like, oh, okay, maybe, and so so they aren't, they aren't these hardline, because again, in their platform, it was more about things going on in culture and sports, and I mean they talk about just those two guys. They're not political guys. Yeah, they're not. They don't understand.
Called Barbershop Talk or something like that.
Shop Talk. Yeah, they're not political guys. Talk. So this whole thing of Marxism, they didn't even know. Hadn't really even heard of it until I brought it to their attention some time ago. And then it's like, Chuck, this is some interesting stuff. We got to get you on our platform, because they're not political guys. And so anyway, I'm sorry, Blanche. Go ahead. Finish what you were saying.
No, I mean, and you mentioned about CRT, but the problem with CRT is that if we look at the media, it's like the media is CRT. We talking about this
Yeah.
storytelling. We're talking about creating these narratives, and this is what the media does every single day when it comes to the Black plight. And so, if you think about even with Donald Trump, they've created an entire storyline for Donald Trump that doesn't even exist, and everybody believes it. So now they can get on any kind of platform and just say anything about Trump, and people act like it's true. And so, even if CRT wasn't in schools, it's still in the music, it's in the media, it's in sports, it's in entertainment, even what's going on in Caitlin Clark. They done made this whole Caitlin Clark thing about racism. I'm like, it's insane. And so I don't know. I just think that it's just a tough thing because everybody loved the Matrix back when it came out. And that's all I used to hear, Matrix, 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 until 2020 happened. All of a sudden now you don't hear it that much anymore. Everybody's kind of like, on one side of the fence or the other side of the fence. Even an undecided person, Chuck, is not really undecided because everywhere they turn, it's left, it's liberal, it's Marxist, like from the toothpaste commercial. It's crazy. I remember that 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, no, in 2020, there was this Sprite commercial they were playing, and the Sprite commercial started out normal, then they went to social justice, then they went to trans. So when they played the whole commercial finally at one time, it literally went from drinking the Sprite to fighting for Black liberation to just go ahead and being trans. And so I'm just like, I don't know. All of the stuff around us is the propaganda. And so when you're speaking to people, you kind of open their eyes up to like, wait a minute, you mean to tell me this is too? Like my friends tell me all the time, let me guess, it's communist? I'm like, yeah, it is. Like they all say, like, yeah. Like if I tell them Tupac was a communist, they be like, man, here you go again. But it's true. Like, I mean, like.
Yeah. It's like you say, it's background noise. It becomes default. And so sort of like the liberal or left wing position becomes matter of fact. All right. And so anything to the right of what is deemed matter of fact just seems like lunacy. Because everything, like you say, Blanche, is so one-sided that you don't even realize because you don't know what you don't know, right? You don't know that you haven't been presented with an alternative way of looking at things. And so it becomes a situation where, or this kind of predisposition where it's like, what you don't know, that's just the way, no one told you. It's like, Black folks, we're, driving while Black or whatever, all these narratives, all the, these phrases and cliches, like, but that's not true though. It's like, well, no, it is true. It's like, well, how do you figure? It's like, no, it is. I mean, that's just the way it is. You didn't know, nobody told you. It's like, no, nobody told me. Right. I want you to explain it, back up what you say, but unfortunately, like you said, it's just everything is so lopsided. You take it for granted. Right. But it's not true. It's not true at all.
I think you muted, Chad.
I thought I was muted. Okay. So somebody said, and I did watch the Brandon Tatum I guess reaction to the Chuck clips, and he did, as the Blacks would say, give you your flowers, and he even said that you were saying things better than he could say them, so he acknowledges your brilliance in that respect. I wanted to play something. Go ahead and respond to that if you wanted to.
Yeah, no, and in this while because again, we're just talking about critical race theory and just explaining it to them that it's a methodology, it's a way of looking at things critically, and this is the whole thing that Marx talked about. He talked about evoking a critical consciousness, and it's not so much that you walk into a class and it just says, well, critical race theory, above that's not the way it works. And they're taking, and I think I even may have said this in the interview, it's like they're taking, and I've said it on the show at different times, that, these were ideas that were once upon a time were undergrad, postgraduate level things that, young adults would unpack, right? But now it's like, okay, well, we're going to introduce it to younger folk, but let's find a way to introduce it to them in a more kind of like subliminal fashion, so whereas that they they don't actually perceive it or know exactly what's going on, because even children that young don't even have the cognitive capabilities, literally, because their brain functions in where they are developmentally. They don't even have the cognitive capacity to really think that abstract yet. But that's the point, is to shock and to introduce the younger people to things that they are not prepared to handle, so as to kind of turn them into these neurotic, anxious, depressed type individuals who have to be led by the so-called expert, because the world now all of a sudden looks so confusing. And in order for it's like, you have to sort of go back to the activists or go back to the academic, the politician, and so on and so forth, to get your fix and to lead you. This is what, when Quisha's here, where she talks a lot about, it's about it being cult indoctrination, how these people are in a cult. That's how cults actually work. That's how they break you down and then build you back up. And then you thank the person for having built you back up when there was nothing wrong with you to begin with. That's the person that actually victimized you, so that they could convince you to follow them, because without them, how else could you make sense of the world? So this is what the whole critical teaching is all about.
Yeah. I wanted to play a moment from the interview that I thought was quite interesting, and actually plays into one of the last things that Chuck was just talking about.
Just to put a bow on that shit, like, I'm not ready to cancel Will, or like,
it doesn't need to be canceled. It's not a mental health situation.
Well, it could be with him or with both, all parties involved. But what I mean is, like, we can acknowledge that a nigga had a bad day, slap the shit out of somebody. It's been there, done that, unfortunately, right? But you don't praise the mistake. Like, just don't praise the mistakes.
I know we're gonna move on from this topic, but I don't watch that Red Table Talk show. I'm gonna watch that shit.
But they announced they're gonna be addressing it.
Okay, I saw a clip just research. I'm so happy that I just
and I watched the video, and
okay, so sorry about that. I thought I had it queued up, but this is actually the moment right here. Let me take this back to normal.
Oh,
that's a fact.
That I don't know if she showed her how to do it or what. Well,
that's one of those.
But because I dropped a live stream about, we talking about Jada, and I just was like,
algorithm threw me a video.
YouTube algorithm.
And it was about critical race theory.
Okay, here we go.
And I watched the video, and I liked it. You feel me? I thought it was pretty cool. I ain't really got all the way into the whole critical race theory shit. I know what I hear from like headlines and shit. And I know I never heard that shit in school. So I'm like, how long has this been going on? And blah, blah, blah.
Pardon the language.
And it was
pardon the language.
It was like, I'm gonna put it in the in the show notes so y'all can take a listen and shit. But I watched it, and I was like, it was two white folks, and a black woman, professor, all degreed up and everything. And they were just asking questions, and she was explaining. It was like, we don't understand. What it looked like to me was like, two white folks was like, this is Jason's, this is my, like, we don't like this critical race theory shit. It sounds like some nigga shit. I need you to explain to me what the fuck this is. And then I thought she did I think she pretty much did a good job. And I think at like first they wanted to push back, but as they kept going, they didn't have nothing to push back on, and they had like a really cool conversation, so to speak. And I was like, man, like, I'm not an expert in this theory. I'm like, let me send this shit to Chuck. I wonder what Chuck think about this video and shit. And then they gave me back a little while. I was like, I'm hot. He was like, nigga, thanks for riling me up early in the morning and shit.
Man, early in the morning, man. And I just skimmed through it a little bit, right? Okay, I said, what the hell? Okay, I skimmed through it. And then I said, man, I'm gonna wait. And then when I ended up when you was like, yo, man, I might have a spot open, man, you might be able to come through and get down next week. And that's when I finally watched it from beginning to end. That's only about an hour long. It took me almost 2 hours to get through it, because I kept having to stop it, and I would take a couple deep breaths. I would walk around the room. I said, okay, I'm ready. Come back, listen to another 3-4 minutes. I said, man, what the fuck? I said, man, hold on, man. So I grabbed my
So that's really what I wanted to bring, because like I didn't have that same reaction.
So going off of, again, what you were saying in terms of like just this kind of milieu, that's the word that I would use, that many blacks live in, where they hear critical race theory rhetoric and they might not acknowledge it as critical race theory rhetoric, but they sympathize with it, they resonate with it because it's really a part of the Black cultural milieu. It's really the hegemonic narrative of Black culture that you are put upon. I mean, what did FD Signifier say? He said that in America, if you're Black, you can't be a man in this society. And it was from my I guess, diagnosis of what the fella in the green sweatshirt was saying is that he is kind of, or at the time was kind of along this current that many Black folks are fortunately on, where you believe that you don't have rights in America, that you are second class citizen. You hold a second class citizenship in America, that you are subhuman in America. And to the extent that you have someone like a James Baldwin or like a Ta-Nehisi Coates or whoever these authors and writers and poets are who gives voice to grievance, who gives voice to railing against the system, as it were, that kind of rhetoric, that kind of ideology resonates with many Blacks, even though they might not recognize it as Marxism or as critical race theory. And I think that kind of speaks to where he was in terms of, I listened to it and I thought that what she was saying was great. But then I called Chuck and Chuck said, not so much. That's kind of what you were talking about a moment ago, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You know, he legitimately wanted my thoughts on it because he said, I never paid attention. I never heard any of this stuff before. And again, we had conversations one-on-one just about, you know, police brutality and all this stuff, because this is when all that stuff was going on. And you saw the other co-host, my boy Dane, other gentleman in the Black, you know, he was talking about Donald Trump kind of let racists out of the cage, out of their cages, so to speak, brought them out of their slumber. And these were a lot of popular things that you were hearing at the time. And I would tell them privately, I said, bro, that's not true. And you know, it's just like, all right, well, let's bring you on and let's get you on the record. Again, not to debate, but more so to let's get Chuck's perspective, because as you just heard there, he said, I never really heard of this stuff before. When I heard it, it didn't set off any alarm bells. But when I text Chuck to ask him what he thought, he was like, I'm hot. That's why I was laughing, because that's he was talking. I don't know if we all have them, right? I got these tics, these nerves. So when I hear something and I'm ready to, you can see me, I'm in the chair, I'm taking deep breaths, I'm moving my hat, and I'm like, man, so I'll just wait till I get my turn, because I want to go in on this woman, Carol Anderson. That's what he was talking about. But yeah, that's how it was. He didn't see anything wrong with it, because again, you know, he didn't understand. It had never been brought to his attention before. He was never made aware of what was going on. But that's the milieu of American society, culture, our educational system, our politics. And it's affecting us all, but it has really, really corrupted the minds and the souls, quite literally, of Black folks, especially, unfortunately. But yeah.
The things that these young men, all African-American men under 40, were saying about Vice President Harris calls me to see even more so how terrible of a job we have done, that is the older generation, at teaching these younger people what white supremacy is, especially because these young men had no idea why white supremacy should be the starting point of any conversation when it comes to whether or not you're going to vote for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris.
Blanche, according to this baby boomer, he thinks that their generation did a very poor job of convincing our generation that white supremacy should be at the forefront of our decision making. What say you?
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think they did a great job.
Great job, right?
They have us in the matrix now. I think that a big component of this whole Black man shift is the red pill movement. I noticed that when I came into this space in 2020, that the red pill movement, as far as content, was competing with the content on, you know, COVID, Trump, Biden, all that was competing with the red pill movement. So you had all this content being driven, but a large amount of the content was the red pill movement, especially for black men. White men had been putting the content out, and that thing got very popular in 2020. And so I think that red pill movement kind of gave black men, I don't want to say a voice, but a position, something to stand on. And so a lot of black men's points were, we're not going to be simps for women anymore. So if you think about it, that means just because y'all voting Democrat don't mean we are either. Just because y'all supporting Joe Biden and Kamala Harris don't mean. So I think the red pill movement, people like obviously Kevin Samuels, people, that kind of stuff kind of gave black men the courage to say, you know what, we don't have to just follow suit. And I think that helps. That has brought us to this point right now where you saw a big increase in black men voting for Donald Trump. I want to say it was like, was it 12 or 16%? I can't remember. I know it was less than 20%, but you saw still a large number.
I think it was 20%, because according to that that pollster who works with the Black Voter Project, he opined that according to their studies, before Camilla became the nominee, black men support of Trump was around 20%. But after Camilla became the nominee, it went down to 17%. But go ahead.
Okay, so that, I guess that so let's say 17%. I guarantee that 17% of black men that aren't voting for Kamala, I guarantee they are red pill content consumers.
Yeah.
And I say that because, again, you're not gonna be able to sway them with it being a woman, it being a black woman, and it just be, we have to blindly follow something that obviously isn't for us. I think that's just a huge thing that people don't really realize, to why they're having so much frustration with black men. It's because of that red pill movement. So you have people like Magic Johnson, Ricky Smiley, Jamal Bryant, Luke Campbell, Steve Harvey, all these people coming out trying to make the blanket statement, well, if you don't vote for, then you hate black women. But to me, that's kind of a dig at the red pill movement, because they believe that the red pill content creators, i.e. Kevin Samuels, hated black women, and therefore, that's this whole push. So you notice with black men, they aren't talking about any type of policy, anything. They're talking about strictly do it because it's a black woman. Like, just no thought, just she's a black woman, do it. And I just think the red pill movement had a lot to do with it, in my opinion. I think it had a huge part to play in it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's also too that people under the age of 45 don't have this nostalgic attachment to the civil rights industry in the same way that people over 45 do. I think that's also a part of it. However, I do think that you're right that the red pill movement has a lot more to do with this kind of moving away. I think Roland Martin even made the point to say that the further we get away from the civil rights movement, the harder the work becomes for people like Roland Martin. He said this, the harder it becomes for people like Roland Martin to convince that the Democrat Party has black people's best interest in mind. What are your thoughts, Chuck? I know you already spoke to this particular clip, but do you have any more thoughts?
Well, one thing that triggered me, right, was when he said that, when he said something about black men especially need to know about white supremacy, and in order to understand like the state of current status of things as far as like politics and whatever's going on in the country, whatnot. And I just wrote down here, when I watched the montage originally, I said, no, of course they shouldn't. I mean, they shouldn't, right? I mean, what they should, of course, study, and this is not being taught, and it's not in the homes especially, but definitely not in schools, unfortunately. I mean, it's about ideas, right? It's about concepts. It's about Locke. It's about Montesquieu. It's about Adam Smith. It's about these things, and of course, the Bible and our faith and our spirituality and our belief in God, and that's what it's all about. Because it's funny, because in the name of advancing society, they are in fact regressing us. And I know it sounds simple, and I know I'm preaching to the choir, but what they don't understand is in a lot of these attitudes and ideas, it's so ironic and it's so insidious the way they've inverted things, right? And turned the guilty into the innocent, and turned the innocent to the guilty. Because all of the men to whom I just named are white, right? And so a lot of these notions, you're talking about, and you're talking about slavery, you're talking about bigotry, you're talking about exiling or exploiting one group, right? For the benefit of another. All of these ideas, all of these concepts, I mean, they were rife throughout the world, in Africa, especially, right? And it was a lot of, these white men who went into these places, right, with these ideas and pretty much attempted to, in a sense, sort of transmogrify morally the area so as to get the blacks in Africa and then, Native folks in other parts of the world to sort of see things the way they saw things, because they actually believed that there was some kind of universality or some sort of universal nature in man. Because again, a lot of people don't realize the toil, the thoughts, the ideas that went into building this society and building this civilization. And these are the things that blacks need to learn and blacks need to understand so they can cultivate an appreciation for that which they have inherited. I'm gonna pass the mic. Let me just say this one thing, because I brought up Adam Smith, and this is something that Adam Smith said this in Moral Sentiments back in 1759. Here's what Adam Smith said about slavery back in 1759. Adam Smith said that there is not a Negro from the coast of Africa who does not possess a degree of magnanimity, which the soul of his sordid master is too often scarce capable of receiving. Fortune never exerted more cruelty, her empire over mankind, than when she subjugated those African nations of heroes to the refuge of the jails of Europe, to wretches who possess the virtues neither of the countries which they come from, nor of those which they go to, and whose levity and brutality and baseness so justly expose them to the contempt of the vanquished. So what Adam Smith is saying, he's talking about, first of all, you can hear clearly that he's talking about slavery being immoral, but he's talking about how it corrupts actually the virtue of the slave master himself. And Montesquieu would say a lot of similar things. But again, a lot of the changes, the things that we take for granted now, these were steps in moral development, right? In the ideas about mankind and about human nature, right? That were brought forth by these same men that they trash, or the same legacy of Western society and, colonialism and slavery and all these things, right? Because in order to impose these, what I consider at least to be superior virtues, you must first, and those not going to sound politically correct, but you have to first tame the savage. You must first tame the native by force, right? And then you can hopefully sort of indoctrinate him or enculturate him into your ways. These men who talking about white supremacy and trying to base the civic character in the identity of a nation on race at the expense of other folks are going to produce a state and a governing structure that will be extremely unjust, because states and governments, they govern over territory, and oftentimes you govern over territory composed of people who are different in a multitude of ways, whether it be by way of race, whether it be by way of faith, and so on and so forth. And so how do you manage that? How do you come up with a just society and a just government when you are reigning over a territory comprised of people who are different racially, right? You're going to create this kind of caste system within the jurisdiction of the state that will be the same sort of thing that he accuses whites of, is the exact same thing that he is in fact in favor of, when in fact it was the white man that brought these superior virtues to everyone else. And that's the thing that really gets me upset. But of course, I'm ignorant. I'm ignorant because I support Trump. I don't know what I'm talking about.
You said a word. You said a word. Let's play this other clip. I wanted to, let's see here. Since we're kind of on this topic, I do want to play this clip. We do have a lot of supers. I'm just going to go ahead and play the clip before we get to the supers, because I think this is also relevant.
I was living better when Trump was in president. I had more money when Trump was in president. So, you know, it seems as though there is one particular entity that is trying to destroy the country and cripple the country. And
Who
he's
is that?
very.
Who is that? Who's that?
That would be the Democratic Party, the more liberal party that does not align with my values per se.
They are suffering from disinformation, and that disinformation has them distracted from the thing they should be focused on more so than anything else, and that is white supremacy and not the price of eggs and bread. I hate to inform this young man, but when you become a supporter of white supremacists, you made yourself a fool. You just became Boo-Boo the fool, because you're putting in the hands of people the knife that they're going to use to cut your throat and the throats of your family, your friends, and so forth. These folks don't understand what we're up against because they're too young. All you got to do is just go to Google, type in White House fact sheet, and put the word black, and a web page will come up from the White House that shows this long list of accomplishments that the Biden and Harris administration did for the African American community, like billions of dollars in HBCUs.
So, I mean, the dude is a stooge. He's a pawn, and that is easily discerned merely by what the last thing he said. Merely by the last thing that he said. You know, all you have to do is go to the government propaganda website and they will tell you everything that they're doing for black folks. Don't worry about your food. Don't worry about your gas. Don't worry about anything. Just worry about white supremacy. And by the way, this is an attorney, right? His that clip is from his YouTube channel. That it's called The Defiant Lawyers, right? And his whole thing is,
it's called the who?
White supremacy. The Defiant Lawyers is the name of his YouTube channel. And the whole thing, the whole thing exists to basically say, look, white supremacy is a threat in America. America is a white supremacist society, and I try to basically fight it from within the law, critical race theory. So anyway,
but Chad, whose law? You know, whose law? What law? You know, whose jurisprudence? What is he talking about? You know, is this, right. As I mentioned in my last little soliloquy, that it's funny to me. You know, you talk about the writ of habeas corpus and, you know, common law and the tradition of English common law and how it morphed and mutated and how we took it and, you know, sophisticated it even further here in the United States. I mean, this idea that the state should be just and have no respect of person for terms of their, like, you know, class and these sorts of things. Everyone is sort of held to a equal standard of the law, equal standard under the law, right? And that the state does not exist to sort of it exists to serve the people and not vice versa. All these ideas, these are Anglican speaking, these are English ideas that go all the way back to Rome and Greece. So it's funny the way he talks. He said, as a lawyer, and had to go learn the white man's law, right? Only to try and turn around and pervert it.
Yeah.
No honor.
Yeah. What a geechee. But the thing is, and you said this and you know, keep going back to the discussion that you had on the podcast 2 years ago, because I think you said it better than anyone could. And of course, I'm going to butcher it and trying to reiterate this point. But when it comes to these social activists, they will talk all day long about what's wrong with the system, what's wrong with America, what's wrong with white people, what's wrong with this, what's wrong with that, just airing their grievances, just puking it all over the place. And then when it comes to their solution, nobody stops to ask, well, what is your solution? Like, what, since you have everything to say about white folks and about America and about systemic racism, what now is your solution? Where do we go from here, right? And of course, there's been books written. Where do we go from here? Martin King wrote such a book. He didn't write it, but his name is on it. There's been other social activists who dared to ask the question, where do we go from here? And their solutions are always Marxist. always. You care to expound on that, Chuck? I don't know if you remember. I don't know if you remember that portion of the discussion. But again, the focus is always on the grievance, but nobody stops to ask them, okay, so what then? What if you had everything your way? What does that look like?
Right. Yeah. And I think again, I don't remember everything I said during that show. I haven't rewatched it. Because everybody, even I have people contacting me personally. That's like, yo, where can I find this? So I had to dig through the internet to find the link. I sent it to Blanche, but yeah, man, they have no solution. When you actually read the CRT literature, that's what they talk about. They literally talk about sort of delegitimizing what they themselves refer to, and this is in the critical race theory book, right, that bears the title. All right, they talk about how the liberal order of negotiation, right, we talk about democracy or small r republicanism and so on, right, politics being the realm of negotiation, incremental changes, and just abiding by the process, if you will. Critical race theory, or the proponents of it, that's literally what they say. They talk about how we need to do away with that because that doesn't work. Right? They don't agree with with those kinds of ideas. These such ideas such as you interpret the Constitution as a judge, for example, right, for the purpose of interpreting that which was intended, not to exact justice, because that's not the job of the judge. The job is to interpret the intent of the law. When you're talking about the principle of justice, justice is exacted through the legislature, because we the people decide what is in fact just based upon a tradition of expectation that is this kind of spontaneous outgrowth that is a result of our shared customs. That's the very notion in the tradition of common law. I would love to speak to Mr. Lawyer there and see if he learned that in law school. I've never been in law school a day of my life, but that's not how, but that's how it works. But instead of interpreting the law as written, they want to infer and inject meaning so as to bypass the process, right? And again, they symbolize it or characterize it in a word, which is what they refer to as liberalism. They want to bypass liberalism to expedite change as quickly as they can, because again, this is a part of the whole revolutionary process. They don't, they don't believe in it. And so this is what they want to do: wipe the slate clean completely and just start from scratch. But again, they don't have a solution, because building is hard, destroying is easy. And that's all they know how to do is destroy. They don't know how to build anything. Right. I mean, you ask them and they can't tell you. The same thing when it comes to the economic issue, economic inequality, and so on and so forth. They want to tell you that it's unjust that we have poor people and rich people, but they don't tell you how wealth is actually created. I don't care. Any Marxist, I don't care who they are. Marx would tell you that wealth is the product of labor, but that's not true, because labor doesn't always produce wealth in the same way, for example, as you would see a wealthier country, right? That, on average, the citizens of that nation, that country does not work as much. Right. So something is amiss here. But they don't, they don't talk about that. Marxism kind of just jumps in like hopscotch, like double dutch. It just jumps into it and starts skipping and jumping, but it doesn't get to the origin. It doesn't get to the beginning. It just sort of inserts itself at a point in history, and then it claims to know how to explain and have this catch-all theory for everything. They're not interested in how wealth is created, right? They just know how to take and how to claim how the wealth distribution is unjust. But where did this wealth come from?
Right.
Where did this wealth come from? They have no idea. They're not even interested. And I don't think a Marxist ideologue has ever even asked the question to themselves.
I think,
Blanche, go ahead.
Blanche.
No, I think that the problem is the premise. Much of what, because this is really about you having to believe that another group of people are getting over in society. That's the only way this stuff works. So that you look across the aisle and you say, okay, those people over there, not only do they oppress me, but they're also getting over in this modern day. They're keeping me from getting jobs. They're all happy. They're all rich, etc. But the problem with that is much of what Black people, and I'm gonna say Black folks are the driving force of this. Much of what Black people know about anything in the world is fairy tale and fantasy. So Black people don't actually respect a process. They don't respect something being built from the ground. They don't respect any of that stuff because much of what they know about white people is just rumors, mythology, folklore, stuff that's been passed down. So if you ask somebody, okay, well, how did this white family get to this name? They're going to say they were their own slaves. Then if we do a deep dive, no, they actually didn't own slaves. So again, Black folks don't really respect a process. They don't respect how things actually work. What they respect is a story about how the big white giant got to sit on top of the hill. And that's what Black people gravitate to. So that's why CRT is so very appealing to Black people, because you can just tell a story. You can just say, yeah, man, when I was a kid, I had to walk 10 miles to school and the white kids threw rocks at me and I had to go to school all beat up and buddy with no shoes on. And like that kind of stuff, gets Black people riled up. So you telling somebody that you just walked to school with no problems, they don't want to hear that. And so, yeah, Chuck, they don't respect the process. I heard Al Sharpton, though, admit when the guy died in Memphis, he was killed by the 5 Black police officers.
Mm-hmm.
When that guy was killed, Al Sharpton, remember, he was supposed to be messing. They said he was messing with one of the guy's wife. I don't know. But it happened in Memphis. I think maybe a year, maybe 2 years ago.
Was it that Tyree Nichols, or am I thinking of somebody else?
Tyree Nichols, yeah.
Tyree Nichols, yes. Tyree Nichols. And so Al Sharpton's doing a eulogy, and Al Sharpton, to my surprise, he admitted. He said, I don't know how we're gonna do it. I don't know where, I don't know how. Like, he admitted he don't know. So my point was, Al Sharpton has been doing this for 50 years, and the conclusion of 50 years is that he doesn't know what to do, what's going, like, that lets you know these people don't really have a solution. Their solution is to either trick white people to give it all up or to forcefully remove it from white people. That's their solution. This all boils down to the Robin Hood theory. We're going to take from the rich and we're going to give to the poor. And sadly enough, a lot of white people actually agree with the rhetoric. They believe that they're privileged. They believe that they're taking, I'm like, dude, you're not. Listen, you get up in the morning like I get up in the morning. This notion that white people have 48 hours in a day and we only got 20, or we only got 15 is insane. We all got the same amount of hours in a day, do the exact same thing. All of these, well, what about the roadblock? Listen, I've looked this way my entire life. I'm telling anybody this. I've been this way the whole time. There has never been a time in my life where somebody or something said that I couldn't do something and forced me out of what I wanted. It's never happened in my life, ever. It never even come close to that. But again, Chuck, the process over the story, over the fairy tale, you're going to bore Black people with, think about economics. Even think about the majors that we pick. Look at the majority of majors that Black people pick versus other races. You know what I'm saying? So again, when it comes down to like a technical, that's why Black folks, they talking about the pyramids. Because you get, well, how'd you move these big stones over here? How'd y'all, we should get in logistics. Like, how'd y'all do this? They don't want to hear it. They just want the magical. We use our third eye. We levitated across the Sahara Desert and built the pyramids. But yeah, they don't like the process though. It's the process. They don't.
They don't respect the process. Amen.
So if you haven't already, please like this this stream and share it. Like it and share it. Like it and share it. Like it and share it.
Go ahead. Now, after you read the supers, I don't know if you planned on getting into it, and it's okay if we don't get to it tonight. Maybe we can get to it on another night. But this whole thing about President Trump wanting to grant immunity to police officers, this fairy tale, this needs to be explained, because a lot of people just They don't again. It's oh man, just anyway. But go ahead with the supers. I just wanted to put that bug in your ear just in case you were thinking about it. I really want to talk about this police immunity discussion that people keep trying to say Donald Trump is going to give police officers carte blanche to go upside your head.
But y'all tell me they already got it. Y'all tell me they already got immunity though. Like,
hey, stop and frisk was the best thing that ever happened in New York.
The best thing.
City.
Yeah.
You should add one more part to it. Stop, frisk, and go upside the head.
Right.
All right. So let's start with this one from Salome. $5 super chat rather. Love the show. Alex Jones wants to talk to Chuck. Chuck is blowing up. $2 from Oh Really. Overcoming decades of brainwashing takes time. It sure does, but for some people, something just clicks and they're able to get it quite rapidly. But yeah, you're right. It does take time for the overwhelming majority of people.
Like 3 minutes.
Cash Wise, $5 says, these montages always show me that people don't read. They don't, and that's unfortunate. Got a $1.
Be specific. It ain't people who don't read. It ain't
Black folks don't read.
Black folks don't read.
Hey, I'm not trying to play a game of whataboutism, but there's a lot of white folks that don't read too, and I see it every day. It's unfortunate. But in the same way that the cultural milieu of the blacks is, puts them in a position where they have this kind of predisposition to be anti-America. I think that for the most part, well, maybe not for the most part, for in many ways, for a lot of white folks, their predisposition is to be pro-America. So that, I think, is one of the good things that America has going for it, is that there's a lot of people who don't read but still has a predisposition to be pro-America. But to the extent that that's being exploited by the day, and to the extent that that's being subverted by the day through education and through the arts, the clock is kind of ticking on this, even white folks having a predisposition to be anti-America. So I don't know if any of you care to respond to that.
I'm gonna just say that, okay, white people don't read, but they don't run their mouth though.
Right.
But black folks know everything.
And I'm saying, like, black people don't read and they got a show. Like, so it's too much. Like, come on, man. Y'all heard Teslin? Come on, what we talking? She just be up there just.
Yeah. And she yeah, you're right. She talks as if, and I mean, you saw it all throughout the montage, like just this talking with this confidence as if you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like just.
And then have the audacity to call Trump supporters ignorant and dumb and retarded and all the things that they were saying is like pot kettle, situation. Brian Hintz gave us a $1 super sticker. Thank you. Sir Tice, $10, sending a salute to Chad, Blanche, and my 313 bro. Chuck, great commentary as usual. Salute and respect. 313. That's Detroit
area code.
Vic gifted 5 memberships. Thank you. Really appreciate it, Vic. Got $10 from Will Teach 'em Chuck, laying down facts and shining light on the nonsense. 100%. Jerobi blessings, $20. Thank you. Vintage Goods, 1551 Willie, $10. Speaking on that Will slap, he actually hit his shoulder. A slap has a snap sound. That was a dull sound. Interesting.
That was WWE, man.
Right. I said we don't want to go back to that, man. I'm just glad we ain't got to talk about it no more.
The sounds you need, $20. What are you all's opinion on the CRT debate? Thank you for the content. Definitely transformative. We got a lot more, so we'll end it there. As far as the supers go, I'll circle back to them later in the show. So what are y'all's thoughts on the CRT debate?
Well, yeah, I think we made it. I think we made it clear. I think, I don't know when the person sent the super, but I think we've made our stance pretty clear. I myself am against it. I mean, and it's not so much that critical theory or conflict theory, as it is called, sometimes shouldn't be talked about. Because you have to know how to, you have to become aware of these ideas. They have to be tested. For the purpose of even strengthening your position, right? So you can know what it is that you stand for yourself, and you can know how to, because, people are going to come into your life in the form of politicians or whatever to try to push these ideas. And so you have to learn of them. And like I said earlier, a lot of these critical theory ideas, these were things that college students learned. It wasn't something that school kids learn. And then again, I'm not against it being taught. I'm not against it being understood. But what really sticks in my craw when it comes to the left is their deceit and how duplicitous they are. And they will tell you outright that you cannot let them know, because again, this whole idea that the status quo, right, the system, and what our expectations are for society and all of these things, it is because, and Marx and others would say this explicitly, and this is the whole Gramsci-esque kind of phenomenon of cultural Marxism that a lot of people talk about, right? It's that it isn't so much that the things that are produced as a result of the exploited classes' labor is a thing in and of itself, but Antonio Gramsci introduced this idea of culture being a form of capital. And so one of the reasons, of course, why there was no grand uprising throughout the West is because that the institutions had made folks unaware of the fact that they were in fact oppressed and enslaved and all these things. And so you have to do an end around, you have to circumvent that in order to convince them to see what they otherwise would see had it not been for the institutional hegemony and all its machinations, convincing people to go along just to get along. And what that means in so many words is that they know that they have to lie, or this is what they think, because if you tell a person straight up what you're doing, they're not going to go for it. And they think that it's a just thing to lie and to be sneaky and to even be unlawful. Like this is Vladimir Lenin flat out said it, that the communist movement has to be twofold in nature. You have to have a communist party, and you have to have an apparatus, as they would call it, an underground communist party that was illegal and one that was largely legal. Because they said that if you tell people straight up what you're doing, you're going to be found out about and they're going to reject it. But you have to lie to them for their own good, because you are the one who is in fact showing them how oppressed they are, right? And so this is what really gets me about CRT and these things. They want to say, well, they don't want to teach Black folks about their history. It has nothing to do with that. It's your deceitfulness and it's your lying. And the fact that you feel as though that your perspective can't be challenged, because when your perspective is challenged, the person that is doing the challenging is the sort of gatekeeper that is protecting the status quo, and as a result, protecting people from shifting into this new kind of liberating paradigm that's going to make them freer than they are currently. And this is why they believe in the virtue of lying. Don't be honest, because you can't be honest with people who are trapped in the matrix and the status quo, because they'll just attack you. And that's what really gets me about them. It's how dishonest they are. It's the lying and so I'm not against it necessarily being taught, because and again, I do think there are some things that we can take away from even what Karl Marx taught himself. Because essentially, I think that the Communist Manifesto and a lot of the communist activities that were going on in England and in France and Germany and so on and so forth, I think was for as much talk. Think about how crazy this is, because they call conservatives reactionaries, but Karl Marx and the Communist Manifesto and all of his cohorts, what they were putting together was in fact a reaction to change. It was a reaction to the effects and the urbanizing effects of the Industrial Revolution. Because a lot of what socialists talk about, because what they are right about, they're wrong about, because they place emphasis on the wrong things. Because we don't have communal ownership over property and goods, but we do have communal ownership over our morals and our values. And there are some things that cannot be commoditized. This is why I don't believe in this whole libertarian notion of the homo economicus. I don't believe in that. But what socialists are really in favor of, and especially back then in the midpoint of the 19th century, was this kind of change in the demographics and the whole nature and the style of their environment and in their community. It speaks to what a man by the name of Robert Conquest once famously said. He once famously said that everyone is conservative when it comes to matters that he knows. Right? Karl Marx didn't, this whole idea of things changing in the Industrial Revolution, brought about, a lot of these theories and ideas, and they were responding to this change that they saw in Europe that they believed was sort of bringing about a newer times that were kind of trampling on the more tranquil, the more kind of feudal nature of people kind of living off the things that they produce and not being exploited. So, again, there was a kind of what's the word I'm looking for? More of a sentimentalism, if you will, kind of the little undertone there in the whole Marxist doctrine, this sense of sentimentality, because they were responding to change. But again, they call conservatives reactionaries. But again, the left, they're trying to conserve the wrong things. They're trying to conserve things, in fact, that can't be conserved. So that's the problem. They don't care about conserving values. They just want to conserve other things that they can't conserve.
How is you black not represent for the black woman? Like, I can understand white people vote for Trump or any other race. You know what I'm saying? I can understand other races vote for Trump because they on some real. I'm going to vote for Kamala strictly because she black. I don't even know her motherfucking policies. I'm not finna not vote for the black lady, though. I don't know what type of people y'all is. I'm voting for the black woman, kid. It shouldn't even be nothing to think about. Oh, man, she's going to take her gun. She not black. Stop the cap, man. Kamala is black, kid. She a ski-wee chick. Stop the cap, man. You already know she ski-wee. Y'all sound like some conspiracy theory. She locked boys up. Trump just said on TV he's gonna give police free range on you dumbass niggas. He said it. It's part of his policy. Hey, man, whatever the police want to do, they can do it. You dumbass niggas. And y'all just geeked up. She married a white. I don't care about who she married. She a black woman.
So that's why I'm against CRT even being taught as a theory, because you're not going to have a non-biased person teaching it. The problem is that you're not, these people most teachers are liberal. It just is what it is. And so even when they had programs back in the day like Teach for America and all this, these are all liberal college kids going to the quote unquote workforce of education. And again, they're all biased. So I don't know how you even teach this stuff without having a biased rhetoric behind it. There was even places back in my hometown where the teacher had a pride flag. He had the kids saluting to the pride flag in the classroom and all this crazy stuff. So I just don't trust that these theories are going to be taught from a neutral, unbiased person. When I was in high school, we actually learned stuff, and the teacher allowed us to have our own opinions about it. It wasn't the teacher saying, well, this has happened, this happened. But now it's not the case. Now, before they even touch on critical race theory, they've already been propagandized for about 5 months. So, when a teacher said we're going to learn critical race theory, this is after they've been bombarded with all kind of nonsense. Obviously, it'd be MLK and all this, just Donald Trump bad, democracy threats and all. So I don't trust that these people will do it unbiased. So I don't think we can have it taught now. We got to find some unbiased people to teach. I don't know where we get them from, but yeah, I don't trust anybody now to do that. I don't.
Because even Blanchard, when you listen to them, I mean, critical race theory, and they say, well, it began with Harvard law professor Derek Bell when he came up with this concept of critical legal studies. And just to put it in a nutshell, what the conclusion that Derek Bell drew was that the legal system is, set up for the benefit of white people at the expense of those who are non-white. And so this is, we came up with this idea of whiteness as a form of property. And so in this kind of a backlash to that, and they'll say, well, when folks use such terms as black on black crime or some of the others say, I think did somebody in the montage say something about welfare queens or something like that, this conservative reaction, and they kind of do this stuff with all this rhetoric. And so that's what the critical legal studies and then critical race theory, more broadly speaking, is a system of analysis that suggests that society in all its many different forms, different sectors, social sectors and circles that we operate in, institutions, sports, media, family life, etc. Right? All of these things are set up to benefit those who are white so that they can then have access, because again, the legal system is what binds the social contract, right? This whole idea of each individual and private property. Again, not to get all too philosophical because I gotta go soon, but you have to have a legal system, right, in order to bind the social contract. And so it's all about access to property, and whiteness existing as a form of property is what grants you then further access in terms of being able to profit or to reap the benefits of what America has to offer, right? You had to be in possession of this thing that they refer to as whiteness. And you can see, if you're talking about teaching that and you're trying to make it seem as though, no, that's a fact. That's an objective fact. It's not simply an opinion or, like Blanchard, a theory, a perspective, an opinion. No, this is fact. So in so many words, it's just America is racist. Let's teach the children that America is irredeemably racist, and we're going to dress it up like it's something legitimate, like it's a legitimate academic discipline, like history or economics or even philosophy. Let's just, and so that's it. Find a way in every subject, even if it's math. They'll take a math question and say, well, Susie has 4, apples and Pookie got 2 apples, add them together. How many apples do you have? No, what the teacher will do, and this is actually what the teachers are taught. They're taught in these educational colleges, which were completely taken over by the radicals in the 1960s. Look at someone like Bill Ayers, case in point, is a teacher at the College of Education at the University of Illinois, right? An admitted terrorist teaching teachers how to teach. Instead of saying put 4 apples, 2 apples, how many apples you got? It's no. Let's look at the problem, look at the question, and then coax the kids into analyzing and seeing the fact that Susie, for example, a white woman, has 4 apples. Pookie got 2 apples. How come Susie has 4 apples and Pookie only got 2 apples? And then instead of actually working on the math, that's an example of critical race theory teaching, right? And they'll say, well, this is math. No, it's not math. Because you're teaching children how to see disparity and oppression, even in simple mathematical problems that simply requires arithmetic. No, you have to get to the abstract, as Karl Marx would say, the critical point, to see exactly why it is that some people have 4 apples, while some other folks only have 2. That's an example of critical race theory teaching. And they say they try to do it up under your noses. And when you confront them, they'll say it's just math. Yeah, it's not math.
Exactly. So you saw in that clip there that Slim Thug was saying that no, Trump. Well, actually, he was saying that Trump is wanting the police to basically just go haywire and beat Negroes all upside the head. I know Chuck, you said you wanted to respond to what Slim Thug was saying in that clip.
What when he said what about what did he say?
He said he don't offer
Qualified immunity. He was talking about qualified immunity
Yeah.
and how this will allow black or police officers to just go after blacks. You heard other pundits say that this means the annihilation of black folks. That Trump, through qualified immunity, is advocating for the annihilation of black folks.
Well, I would have to play it. I have to play it back because I started tuning Slim Thug out in a minute. Again, Slim Thug, Little Scrappy. They talk about, and you listen to the music and the stuff that they promote. And I love how Little Scrappy awkwardly, even he was self-aware enough to know, I sound like the biggest hypocrite right now, while trying to explain the difference between white teenagers shooting up schools, right, Blanche, and black men randomly shooting up homes and shooting up clubs, and he trying to dance his way across that, it's like, yeah, you painted yourself into this corner, Scrappy, and even you know how stupid you sound and how much of a hypocrite you sound right now. But anyway, so I started to tune him out, tune the Slim Thug out, but I don't know if Slim Thug used the term qualified immunity, and that's the thing.
No, he didn't say that.
No, he didn't. He didn't.
Exactly.
He doesn't know the phrase, but again, all they know is the rhetoric. All they know is the rhetoric.
Doesn't know the phrase.
Right. All they know is, because that's the thing. Because I mean, I think this is the point that you're about to make. We understand the job of the police officer is very difficult. A lot of the decisions they have to make in a split second, in a fraction of a second. And sometimes the decision is right. Sometimes it's probably not right. And so qualified immunity basically looks at these situations on a case-by-case basis. That's the reality of it. And of course, I'm giving the elementary kind of version of what it is. Of course, Kamala Harris and co are going to misrepresent what it is that Trump is actually advocating for. And they are going to say this, they are going to basically use this kind of extremist rhetoric to try to paint what qualified immunity is. And rather than looking into it themselves to see what it is, they are going to basically take the kind of bastardized version of it that's being peddled by Camilla and co. and give you exactly what Slim Thug is regurgitating. Oh no, they just want to annihilate the black race. So
yeah, and it's funny, again, qualified immunity for Slim Thug and everybody else out there. Qualified immunity already exists, ladies and gentlemen. Dummy. And you don't see what you claim that you're going to see, because police officers have long had qualified immunity, right? And the term qualified prefaces the term immunity because it's not that police officers are immune from criminal prosecution, dummy. It's that if they are found to have done something, right, that falls in line with their duties that may cause a person personal injury, qualified immunity means that they can't be gone after personally for damages civilly. That's what qualified immunity means. If I'm a person and I'm driving, right, for example, and a police officer sees me speeding, right? Say, for example, if I'm on my way to a job interview, right, or somewhere, and I get pulled over, I may get a ticket, I may get a warning, right? Perhaps the police officer, he mistook me for someone else, whatever the case may be. I can't then turn around and go after that police officer personally for lost wages for having prevented me from making it to a job interview on time, because he was acting in accordance with what was expected of him as a police officer, because he was functioning within the lines and within the boundaries of his duties. And the reason why qualified immunity exists is because given the nature of the job of the police officer, right? Because, every sort of jurisdiction has to have certain set-asides. This is why people, if they feel as though they've been done wrong, we've seen numerous cases. I mean, look at George Floyd, for example. The Floyd family, even before Chauvin was found criminally guilty, the city had awarded his family close to $30 million. The city. But you can't sue the officers individually for $30 million. And the reason being is because if that were the case, it would just completely undermine the executive branch, because nobody would sign up to do the job. Right. And so there's a protection there, a balance of powers, Trump does not have the authority to immunize police officers who commit a criminal act. He doesn't have the authority to do that. Now, he can suspend it, especially, if it falls within a federal jurisdiction, right? And we even saw this when it came to a lot of police misconduct, right? Because when the federal government gets involved, they claim that officers were acting in a way that violated the tenets of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. So the federal government have ways to sort of insert themselves, but on a state level, the president himself can't even grant immunity to those having been convicted of a crime that violates the statutes of each individual state. He doesn't have that authority. So again, I don't know. Go back to Grandpa. I don't know what I'm talking about. But that's what Trump is talking about when he's talking about qualified immunity. He's talking about these litigious, onerous people, because the left is funny. The gaslighting. They are the ones who are talking about getting rid of qualified immunity because they claim that these officers, they're off the hook. They don't have to pay a penalty for their transgression, but they do. But it's just that officers cannot be sued. If I go to arrest you and you resist arrest, and I have to put a little torque on your arm, perhaps I, make hurt you or harm you in some sort of way. If you're resisting arrest, you then can't sue me for breaking your arm. That's qualified immunity. They are immune from people going after them civilly for personal injury, and it has been like that for a long time, Slim Thug. But again, somebody, no one, I guess, has told you. But anyway, guys, it's been real. I gotta take off again because I gotta do some more work. So I'm gonna be watching the show. Thanks for having me on. I'll see y'all boys next week. And fight. Remember, fight. All right, y'all. I'm out, man.
All right.
Take care, Chuck.
If you vote for Trump, you vote for your race to get annihilated. Like, he already ready to give police total immunity, you know what I'm saying, to take us out. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not going around killing white people.
Right.
When they see white people, they are comfortable. Soon as they see somebody that's black, for some odd reason, they're startled. We got a gun somewhere. We got to. Something got to be wrong. Notice there ain't no black kids shooting up no schools around this bitch.
Right.
We shooting up, little black kids shoot up where they go to. Like, man, fuck, man, we in the hood, man, I shoot this bitch up, club up, like, we gonna shoot some shit. We gonna shoot shit that we ain't come to shoot. You feel what I'm saying? We ain't even we got a target, but we don't know where to target at. Right. We shooting everything but the target. That's what black people do. We'll rather fuck our own people up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we ain't gonna get no police, none of that shit. You might have one every blue moon that, you know what I'm saying, a little tough guy, you know what I'm saying? Right. But we be like, we already know, like, no folk is against us. Like, we already know that. Like, I ain't never seen you do nothing to my people a day in your life, but I know you're bad.
What is he talking about?
It's just sometimes, it's called a niglet seizure, where your brain starts to malfunction and you just start spewing out a bunch of nonsense. And usually, to remedy the situation, it takes about, a couple of ounces of Hennessy, maybe some weed, a couple of wings, all flat. That usually calms the seizure down. But yeah, he's just.
What's with all the jewelry he was wearing too, by the way? You see that?
That's part of oppression. The more oppressed you are, the more ice you get to wear. So he's just showing you how oppressed he is. 2 phones on the couch, 2 cell phone plans, iced out jewelry, expensive clothes.
If you vote for Trump, you vote for your race to get annihilated. Like, he already ready to give police total immunity, you know what I'm saying, to take us out. You know what I'm saying?
He has on 2 rings, a bracelet. I mean, hey, good for him. Good for him.
And again, what he said was just a lie. He talked about police don't shoot white people. That's false. We can go to the numbers. They shoot white, black, Hispanic, Asian, like everybody. In 99% of the cases, people are armed. So again, this is just,
Yeah, it's
the
not like they're
premise,
just going around looking for people to shoot.
right. It's just, the premise is already set. Like I've been saying, it's just, it's already agreed that police brutality is a real thing. It's already agreed upon. Like we can't argue that. Well, if we can't argue that, then we can have a conversation then. Because I'm going to argue that police brutality is a real thing.
Do you believe as many I guess Republicans and Trump supporters do, that Back the Blue is the obvious response to the police are killing us? So if the rhetoric from people like Scrappy and Slim Thug and other, as you call nigglets, if their rhetoric is police brutality is a problem, black or police officers are trigger happy, they're annihilating black men in the streets, if that is their rhetoric, and then too, from a political perspective, you saw for a moment there, their rhetoric of being defund the police, and of course they toned down that rhetoric since then, but they still believe in this notion of defunding the police. Do you think that the right response is Back the Blue?
Yes, because to
Why?
me, I think backing the blue is in context. So in other words, we're going to support police officers. I think it's Back the Blue is a counter to the negative picture being painted of the police. So the media pretty much, even if you go read an article, the way they even headline the article, police murders young black man. They're not going to mention armed black man shot 2 police officers and got killed. You see what I'm saying? So even
with a record, yeah.
So they're painting a picture of police that's not necessarily true. So Back the Blue is kind of like, I'm going to support police officers because I know that the majority of police officers do their job. If they didn't, it would be chaos. And also, if they didn't do their job, like if the police were really acting how black people said, black folks wouldn't be committing crime as much. They'd be too afraid to. If it was really how they said it is, black folks would not do all the stuff they're doing. They would pretty much be very, very compliant. The fact that when black folks get arrested, they do all this fighting with the police because they know the cops aren't really going to hurt them. That's why they do it.
Right.
If you really felt that way, like they wouldn't do it in China. When black folks get arrested outside of this country, they comply. They don't argue. They just comply, and they get locked up and thrown in jail. So they already know that over here they have a lot of leeway with the police. They know.
Yeah. I mean, so Back the Blue is a slogan, right? Do you believe that it is a slogan that could potentially be exploited in a negative way? I guess where I'm going with this is like, so because you're right, when you consider the slogan in context, it is a response to this kind of throwing under the bus, if you will, by social activists of the very existence of police officers, and saying that because there is a handful of situations where it is perceived that this white police officer brutalized this black victim, the whole thing needs to be uprooted and thrown away. And with this rhetoric, they've kind of created this climate where a lot of folks, unfortunately, are hostile to the police, to police officers. And so here along comes Republicans to say, no, we need to back the blue. We need to show police officers that we support them, that we should support what they're doing, which I get. I totally get that. However, I guess my issue with slogans is that they instill a mindset in many people that can be exploited against them. So, for example, if you have whether at the local level or at the state or federal level, the police being weaponized to go after people who are conservative or who are Christian, we've seen this happen in many nations around the world. Will the slogan still be Back the Blue? So again, I think when you kind of, when you basically relegate everything down to a slogan, it takes away the the substance that should be in these conversations. And the fact is, because people want to win political points, instead of having real conversations, we just kind of throw slogans back and forth at each other without realizing that, and it's unfortunate because all this stuff starts with Marxists, right? They take a situation, blow it way out of proportion, and make it to where even if someone like me, who is level-headed, say, well, there are some police officers who abuse their job, it can be construed as me agreeing with these Marxists who want to throw away the system and overthrow everything, when the reality is, I feel like the more we kind of relegate everything to slogans, the more people like myself who are interested in real conversations, and not only a conversation, because it's not so much that I want to hear what the Marxist plan is. Like, I think that their ideas are garbage. I think that their ideology is garbage. I don't want to hear anything they have to say. I'm not interested in a conversation with a Marxist. However, when it comes to the space for level-headed people to, at the local level, talk about what is the best way of policing this or that community, I think that space is becoming less and less in terms of its real estate, if you will, because the whole conversation is dominated with slogans. I don't know if what I'm saying makes sense.
No.
You can respond.
So basically, it's a slogan. It's a slogan war back and forth.
Right.
They yell out defund the police. We say we're going to back the blue. They yell out Black Lives Matter. They yell out all lives matter. It's just this back and forth of slogans. I think the problem that we run into is that the left controls the messaging. So I don't think we've been in a time period in history where one side just controls everything when it comes to getting the message out to the people. So I don't know how do we even navigate in a space where if you cut the radio on, you cut the TV on, you're on a bus, you're on a train, look at a building, you're on a billboard, like everything is so it's like, how do you combat that if not with a slogan? You even mentioned long form content versus reels. Yes, because of the attention span of people. And so I think that Back the Blue was just like a reaction, like a frustration reaction to this demonizing of the police. But then the problem is that we saw during, COVID and stuff, the police were the ones enforcing a lot of this stuff that I believe was unconstitutional, so it wasn't Back the Blue then. It was, because the police were the ones enforcing this stuff. So I agree. I just don't know how we navigate through this type of error, because what we see, most folks don't see. They don't see that this thing is really a stacked deck against, even if we go to the debate, like that's an example of, you got two moderators and you got a candidate on the left, and the moderators are only focused on, checking one person in both debates. So, the deck is stacked. I just don't, so I'll say this, right? Like, you've done some videos, like Chuck recently have done some videos where you all are able to convey, in particular, your last video about the guy's name starts with a B. What's his name? The guy that was in the picture with King.
You're talking about Carl Braden.
Yes, Carl Braden, and then Chuck on this podcast. It's from 2 years ago. So I think that these types of things, like the stuff, these reels, you pack so much information in just like a short amount of time, to where, to me, that's an effective way to combat what's being done. Because you pack in maybe about 30 years worth of information in 2 minutes, but it's digestible. So I think that the average person is able to get it. I mean, with a slogan, you put on a t-shirt and all that, but then, like you said, what happens when the police are like coming after you? Because if it comes to, if you think about it, if it comes to being penalized for misinformation online or being seen as a criminal for what you put online, the police are coming. So I mean, it just is what it is. And so, you know, I do agree to a certain extent. So I think that maybe conservatives or those on the right may need to invest in the shorter form of the content where they're packing it with information, with visuals. You almost make it like a storybook for a child, like a pop-up book for a child, where they're talking and you have the pictures on the screen just to keep people engaged and interested. I think, to me, I think that's what's more impactful and powerful. Most folks aren't going to want to sit in front of a lecture. They're not going to sit through an hour-long podcast unless it's some drama. Just being honest. If I talked about these people in Hollywood, my views and my stuff would be a sky high. But it's a waste of time, though.
Yeah.
I'm not going to quench the niglet's appetite for foolishness. But
the niglet appetite for foolishness.
I'm not
Boy,
going.
ain't that the truth?
Yeah.
Speaking of I don't know. So we talked earlier in the show about how Black men have done this to themselves in terms of being treated in these political spaces as if they're little children, that they need to be patted on the head. And I wanted to play again this clip from Magic Johnson.
There's a lot of Black men in here, and I don't mean to, not talk to other people, but this is important. Our Black men, we got to get them out to vote. That's number one. Kamala's opponent promised a lot of things last time to the Black community that he did not deliver on. And we got to make sure we help Black men understand that. So that's why I'm here, to make sure I help Black men understand. First, get out and vote, and then vote for the next president of the United States, Kamala.
So you're in a room full of mostly white folks, and you're sitting up there on the stage saying, we need to help Black men understand that Kamala is the only way. And I don't know. I know we talked about this earlier, but do you believe that they realize how condescending they are? Because that's the thing. It's like, yeah, I could talk about, like, me personally, I can talk about how he's being condescending, but at the same time, given the reputation that Black men themselves have projected to the world, I don't know that it isn't well deserved. There's this idea of being spoken down to, as if like you're a little special needs child who needs a helping hand to really understand the way the world works. What say you?
I would say that they don't think they're talking down to Black men because they don't respect Black men. So they're talking to Black men where they are, and that is at a subservient position in the Black community. Black women run politics, education, and the Black church. So the major facets and Black households, most of them are led by Black women. So from the politics to the finance to religion to education, Black women run it. So the Black man is pretty much out of a position when it comes to that. So the way he's talking to a room full of white people, he's encouraging white people to be bold and, challenge Black men. If you hear some kind of rhetoric or whatever, it's almost like you're giving them the pass to say the N-word, but you're doing it through politics. You're giving them the pass to, okay, you all have a hall pass to go against any Black man that's not supporting Kamala Harris. So no, they don't think they're talking down. I think that they're exposing where Black men are. And again, to talk about Black men like they are sitting in the room tells you everything. And then most Black men, Chad, will acquiesce. You're not going to find many Black men to publicly say, I'm going to support Donald Trump. I'm not supporting Kamala Harris. You're not going to see Black men being unapologetic. Like, tell me an interview you've seen where somebody said, I'm voting for Trump. That's just it, and that's all, period. Next question.
Right.
No, you hear an explaining, you hear a way to soften the blow.
Qualifying and
and even the guy on the side of the street, he said, was the civil rights movement good? He should have just said no.
Right. Yeah,
And instead of saying no because he's trying to appease, no, it wasn't good.
He conceded the point, which is wrong. I would have said no. The civil rights movement was not good. It was terrible for, if nothing else, the psyche of Black culture. And I would go in on that. Somebody, I guess, responded to what I said. Mike Jones, he said, "What representation have Black men represented to the world?" Need I explain it? Complaining, being a victim, I can't make it because the white man. And then if you try to give them historical analysis of how Black folks were able to make it even in the face of so-called Jim Crow, well, yeah, here along came white people to burn it down. Look at Black Wall Street. And of course I have to correct the record on that. Black Wall Street is not what it, how it was presented to you. The fact is, it was a riot. It wasn't a massacre. Black folks were firing shots. In fact, the first shot came from the gun of a Black man. And then they, of course, brawled and went toe to toe. And yes, a large part of the community was burned down, but it was quickly built back. And guess what? White folks in Tulsa, Oklahoma helped them build it back. They don't talk about that, of course. And the fact is, the way that the tension was able to be initiated in the first place was because Richard Lloyd Jones, who is a so-called progressive socialist newspaperman, wrote an article titled "Nab Negro for Attacking White Girl." This was a progressive, a socialist who wrote that article. And he wrote it to try to get white folks in Tulsa riled up. And conversely, there was a Black man named A.J. Smitherman, who was a member of the NAACP, who wrote an article in the Black newspaper trying to convince Black men to show up to the jail before the white men even got there, getting them riled up. And so you had two self-described socialists, or I'm sorry, progressives, who initiated the brawl to begin with, the riot to begin with. And after the dust settled and people came back to their senses, they worked together to build back the community. And Black Wall Street wasn't even called Black Wall Street until after the riot.
Right.
And it would go on to thrive for the next 40 years until, guess what? The Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Civil Rights Movement, which did something quite detrimental to the Black psyche. What it did was it took us from being a people who relied on our own two hands to make our living, to make our way, to now relying on so-called race leaders in law and government to build utopia for us. And so ever since the Civil Rights Movement, of course, the many Black men have projected this woe is me kind of victimhood to the world. If I asked you, Mike Jones, what do you think of what do you think of James Baldwin? I'm sure you would have nothing but great things to say. But if you look at James Baldwin's body of work, he gave, once again, voice to this grievance, to this woe is me, to I'm a victim, to I can't be a man in America. And you hear it a lot in the rap songs about how the white man's out to get me, right? And so, yes, the fact that you all have made these rap artists popular, the fact that you all have made folks like James Baldwin popular, the fact that you all have made someone like a Martin Luther King popular is indicative of the image that you put out to the world, that I'm not a man, that I need some, some policy, that I need some government program, that I need white folks to come down a peg or two, that I might then be raised up a peg or two. I mean, I feel weird having to explain that to grown folks. Anyway, you have any response to that, Chuck or Blanche?
Yes, and so I guess he asked how Black men have been represented. I think the better question is, how have Black men wanted to be represented? Black men controlled the representation, at least for the past 80 years. Black men, if we go back to, we can go back to the Harlem Renaissance, right? Black men weren't portrayed as criminals and thugs. That's over 80 years ago. So again, Black men have controlled their imagery. Besides movies like Birth of a Nation, after that time period, we can say from the 20s on, Black men have controlled the representation. The problem is is how black folks wanted to be shown to the world. And so that's on them though. Black men don't want to be seen as scholars and scientists and doctors. Black men want to be seen as kings and thugs and bosses and all this kind of stuff. So that's not white people. That's what black men want. And again, you see Lil Scrappy in there. You see, Slim Thug. You see all of it.
Right. That's the thing. I don't have any sympathy for this kind of crying black man. Like I really don't. I mean, I started way from the bottom. You hear in the rap song, started from the bottom, got it out the mud. Like I literally am the epitome of getting it out the mud, starting at the bottom. And the fact is, I set out to be successful in America, and I accomplished that. Most of the black men I know have set out to be successful in America, and they've accomplished that, right? If you want to cling to this manufactured, fake and faux and phony idea of what blackness is, and you insist on clinging to that, while at the same time wanting to be successful in America, that's on you. Suffer and die, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I wish God's grace upon you. Let me just say that. But at the same time, if you insist on clinging to blackness, suffer and die, because you will sleep in the bed that you've made. That's all I have to say on that subject. Let's see here. Let's see. I want to bring Grandpa back up here.
I feel as though if he were to lose, then we would be on our way to a communist country.
I must say that Trump is the one who is close friends to one of the biggest communist countries in the world, Vladimir Putin. I mean, Trump is the one who is a big supporter of one of the biggest communist leaders in the world. I don't understand when they say that.
Okay, so again, another idiot thing said by an idiot black man with grays in his beard, which is a damn shame. First of all, Trump is not close friends with Vladimir Putin. That's a lie. And second of all, Russia is not a communist country.
The second
that's also a lie. And so again, it's like this is the projection. This is what black in this. I mean, this man isn't famous, but he's using talking points and rhetoric, and he's supposed to be the most educated amongst black men, right? He has a law degree. He has a successful YouTube channel, many followers. Do you think that man who just said those two lies, do you think that he is the exception to the rule as far as black men are concerned, or do you think he's the rule? Be honest. Good grief.
He is the rule. And again, what he said will not be challenged. And this is why I talk about black people have the most dangerous privilege, because they can get on a platform and say something and their words are given credibility because of the way they look. That's dangerous. Like nobody else has that. Everybody else has to prove what they're saying. Black people don't. Well, I would say that you have to prove it if it's not talking about, blaming white people. But when black people get in front of a microphone, it's assumed they're telling the truth. And so even with him, he just lied on Trump and he lied on Putin. But guess what? No fact checks, no nothing, just gets to say it and just keep moving. And the guy in that Zoom call, if you look at all the other guys' faces on there, look at their faces. This is a problem. If you go back to that clip, look at these black men's faces. Their faces are of defeat. The guy is talking to them, telling them, I'm not voting for her because if she's president, the country's going to be communist. This man just said, if she's president, America will be communist, and nobody even blinked. Think about that. Think about nobody even getting upset. Nobody saying that's not true. Nobody, just a bunch of dead stares in the camera when he says that. So that lets you know where the black man truly is. He is that snapshot of that Zoom call. He is sitting there like a deer in the headlights, just waiting to get instructions. He don't know what to do. And then the one guy that dare tell the truth about who Kamala really is and I'm assuming the white guy, the Luntz guy, was leading the Zoom. He wanted to. I don't know what the Zoom, but he was even like, oh my goodness, like, because he knows you got a room full of black men, and one not agreeing is causing you frustration. So you want all of them to agree? Like, you want all of them to think the same way? Like, you want all of them to be on it? It's crazy to me. And again, this is a white man frustrated that this black man doesn't have his same political views. But then you'll turn around and say that that's not white privilege. That's the worst white privilege. That's the thought privilege. You're saying you want to own my thoughts. That's worse than any kind of privilege.
Right.
One recurring theme of my work and the work around black masculinity in general is the fact that black men were never meant to occupy the role of man in America. Even as rights have been attained and progress has been made, black men today are often faced with remnants of that message that we are not real men. We can imitate white manhood and masculinity. We can perform aspects of it, but we will always remain defective versions of it. Even as we clearly present all the features, both positive and negative, of manhood, the goalposts are moved or actions are taken to debase us in order to ensure that we are never comfortable in that role.
So again, you just heard a Negro lawyer, and then you just heard a Negro with dreads. Again, the young Negro with dreads, Blanche, exception or rule?
Oh, rule.
Precisely.
Rule.
I rest my case. I mean, we can't really be men. The goalpost is always moved. Complaining, bitching, and belly aching. This is what black people do. This is what black men do, right? And I'm glad to see the tide kind of turning. But even with the tide turning, and you have, I mean, just to use this upcoming election as a barometer, of course, I don't believe that the chief indication that a black man is no longer victim-minded is his vote for Trump. I don't believe that. But let's just use it as a barometer. Even amongst those blacks who are voting for Trump, many of them still have this victim mindset. So let's not pretend that you aren't projecting this victimology into the world. Let's not pretend that that's not happening, because that's very obviously and clearly what's happening. Go ahead, Blaine.
We even saw with that guy Cash. He's a Trump supporter, and he still has the victim mentality. Or when he was arguing with D. Blade Floyd, he still had a victim mentality. So to me, it's not a righteous turn. It's not a right. This turning of black men isn't a righteous one, because it's not rooted in Christ. So it's rooted in you feeling a certain way. It's really an emotional turn, if I could say that. It's you feeling a certain way, and you want to pivot from that. You felt oppressed by the white man, you felt oppressed by black women, you felt oppressed by feminism, you felt oppressed by capitalism, whatever. But it's still an emotional response to your situation. Because to me, Trump being president or not being president is not going to determine what you do. You should still function as a man. You should still go out there and blaze the same trail and make the same path as if anybody else is in office. But I agree with you. That same victim mentality is still present in this wave of black men voting for Donald Trump. And much like the vote for Kamala Harris is the same thing.
Yeah.
You vote for her because you feel oppressed. Black women are oppressed. Black people are. It's funny. It's really from the same spirit, but just two different responses to it.
Right. Let's play one more on this subject.
A more inclusive and racially diverse Republican Party could be a good thing. American conservatives and Republicans have made the lives of black people difficult on purpose. From the Southern strategy to welfare queens to anti-woke, anti-DEI stuff today, American conservatives have galvanized their white base by making the lives of black people harder. It could be a good thing to see more black Republicans if it means that the Republican Party is becoming actively hostile to the racists who have called that party their home for the last 60 years at least. Make American politics inhospitable to racists. I'm all in on that that platform. But the reality is that racists, or at least racism enablers, were present and accounted for at the RNC. They were given stage time, had exclusive access, and seemed central to the whole operation.
So once again, I mean, even when it comes to this kind of advocating for more blacks to join the Republican Party, it's spoken of in this kind of infiltrative rhetoric. Like, yeah,
Right.
get in there and make it more inclusive, and we all know what that rhetoric means. I mean, it's let's not pretend that we don't know what that means. And so, but I don't know. I guess what stuck out to me, Blanche, and maybe you, Mike Jones, or anyone else in this comment section who have a problem with the things that I'm saying, and I welcome the pushback. Don't get me wrong. My skin is quite thick, but when Homeboy said that conservatives are making life harder for black folks, what exactly does that mean? Genuinely, give me a substantive answer on what that means. How are conservatives making life more difficult for black folks, and for black men in particular? I'll wait. Blanche, what say you?
Well, again, we really have to start examining the qualifications for someone saying something is racist. The average black person saying somebody is racist doesn't mean they're racist, because in what context are you calling them racist? Because they disagree with you? Like, again, because they don't like DEI? Like, that doesn't make somebody racist. So I think that just the term racism itself has become a weapon. To say someone is racist, you should be able to be able to prove it. Just like when we talked about Kamala on that one show, and you were pointing out that she was using communist slogans literally in her speech.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
We're backing up what we're saying about Kamala based on what she's saying. But you can't find Charlie Kirk being racist. You can't find Tucker Carlson being racist. Like, what do you? If they're bringing up data and statistics, that's not racism. So again, his whole premise to me is false. White conservatives are not thinking about black people. They're just not. Now, they're happy if you want to be conservative. They're happy if you want to come to their community and add to it, but they're not necessarily thinking about black people. White conservatives don't move into black neighborhoods. White liberals do. White conservatives don't gentrify. White conservatives stay in their own communities. They don't bother you all. White Karens are liberal. White conservatives aren't Karens. They don't listen. They drive. Matter of fact, they don't go to that store. They don't go to that part of town. So this notion that white conservatives are going to Southside Chicago and making it hard, white conservatives are going to Detroit to 8 Mile and making it hard. White conservatives, like, this is insane. White conservatives don't fool with y'all at all. Why? Think about it. Matter of fact, you all condemn them because they don't fool with you. You say that you say they keep their churches segregated, they keep their churches white, keep their communities white. Like, it's funny that you all complain about them keeping their stuff so white, but then you want them to embrace you. Which one is it? Like, you can't have it both ways. But yeah, white conservatives live their life. But to me, white conservatives are not discriminatory, meaning that if you have conservative values, they're going to embrace you. They don't mind you being of another color or race. It doesn't matter to them. From what I've experienced. Now, of course, they'll get on here and lie, but from what I've experienced, they'll have more in common with you with your ideology than they will with your skin color.
Right.
And so him saying that it's just gaslighting, him saying that you want black people to get into a Republican Party and do what? Make it the Democratic Party? That's what you really want. You really want one party. Because again, I talk about this, one of the spirits of blackness is the spirit of not wanting to compete. So the fact that we have two parties will always be a problem for black people. The fact that there are two opposing views in America will always be a problem for black people. Black people don't want to compete. They want everybody on the same page. And we know this because anytime we say something that's opposite, look what we get hit with. Sell out, coon. Mike Jones said we in our mother's basement. You said we lost, all kind of just foolishness.
Right. Mike Jones, I just put my email in the chat. If you are serious about having a conversation, send me an email. I'll schedule a live stream where I'll be happy to answer any of your questions and debate you. Because what you're saying is quite foolish indeed. All right, so let's get into these supers. We got some that we need to catch up on. Thank you, Adam Nice, $5 super chat. He says, one more time, you need to get into those online debates, Chuck. We want to see it. And yeah, I agree. I mean, I think Chuck is definitely suited to have debates with these folks who believe in systemic racism and all this other nonsense. I don't know how much of a needle it will move because I've never been one for debates. I personally don't watch debates, right? I've been invited to be a panelist in some debates. Made by Jim Bob just texted me a few days ago asking me if I can come on his stream and debate the civil rights movement with a liberal, and I told him, yeah, I'm definitely game. But I'm not someone who just sits and watch debates because I feel, I don't know. Rarely do people watch debates to try to get an understanding on a given subject. People mostly watch debates to fist pump for their favorite debater, right? So I don't know how much of a needle that actually moves, but you know, it is content. So yeah, I would love to connect Jim Bob with Chuck Littleton because you know Jim Bob is always doing these debates, atheists versus Christians and so on and so forth on his YouTube channel. So I think that's something where Chuck can definitely shine. So let's see here. Jesus loves you. $2 super chat. It says, God bless the chat, Chuck, Blanche, and Chad. Thank you. Appreciate it. Patrina John, $10 super sticker. Thank you. LA Thorn, $10 super chat. Places like Baltimore and Maryland have $950 million plus budgets, but have 1.5 or below GPAs. Reading isn't even required for public schools and college English classes. People during Jim Crow were more literate, and this is 100% true. I remember when I visited Baltimore, and I'll be back in Baltimore. I thought I was going to be in Baltimore yesterday, but I got the dates mixed up. I'm actually going to be there next weekend. But I remember when I went to Baltimore for the first time. This was like 3-4 years ago, and we went to West Baltimore, and there was a library there, and it had painted on the side, Baltimore, the city that reads. And I remember just laughing out loud when I saw that. Those of you who are from Baltimore know exactly what I'm talking about. Interesting. Very interesting. Just capping.
Please tell me it's not. Please tell me it had on the side of the building.
It had it on the side of the building. Baltimore, the city that reads. No.
In a city that has one of the lowest literacy rates in the country.
1.5 or below GPAs. Like none of the kids are reading. Well, none is probably a strong word, but most of the children aren't reading at grade level. So
I think it's ironic that, you know, they assume the person will be able to read the sign on the side of the building. Like, you got to actually be able to read.
What a mess. Parents do better. Parents do better. I mean, you can complain about the schools all you want, but it's really the parents' responsibility. Because I know people are going to watch what we just said. Oh, y'all are making fun of kids in Baltimore not being able to read. And what's y'all solution? What's y'all solution? That's the question I always get, right? What's your solution? You're complaining about blacks not being up to par. What is your solution? And it's almost as if you're asking me to kind of step in this position of being some kind of civil rights leader. Like, no. It's your responsibility as a parent to teach your children to read. That's your responsibility, not the school's responsibility. And even people hearing me say that will think that that's an extreme thing to say. How dare you say that the schools don't have the responsibility to teach your kids how to read? I mean, you have capitulated, or not capitulated. I think capitulated is a word, but it's not so much that you capitulated. You willfully punted that responsibility to the school, and then you wonder why your children aren't being able to read, especially in a predominantly black area where, unfortunately, a lot of the kids are more concerned with what kind of pants you have on, what kind of shoes you have on, what kind of swag you have. more so than whether you can write and read and compute. These are not institutions of academic excellence. They're just not. They're social kind of babysitting mills. The so-called school to prison pipeline isn't a result of white conservatives who don't care about Negroes. The school to prison pipeline is the fact that the teachers unions, these Democrats, and many of these parents who've punted responsibility aren't investing in their kids the way that they ought to. And they're experimenting with these kids with these new curriculums that came down from the ivory tower that are Marxist in nature, Marxist in origin, and they aren't really teaching the kids anything. I mean, Chuck said it very clearly and perfectly earlier, where even the math equations have a Marxist agenda to them than serving the purpose of genuinely teaching the kids math, right? And so they're more interested in turning children into ideologues, Marxist ideologues, than in teaching them how to read and write. And so once again, I'll say it again and again and again, that it's the parents' responsibility to first and foremost teach your kids how to read. And if you can't teach them because you are too busy or whatever the case may be, you have more than the public school as an option to send your kids to. That's just a fact. You have to make the necessary decisions for your family. I got to go to work is not an excuse to send your kids to the public school. It's just not. I mean, you're not going to hear other people say that on other platforms, but you'll hear me say that. You know, we're too busy is not an excuse to neglect your children and their learning, you know. So moving on. We got $5 from Chris Creative. Chris Creative. He says, how many queens did God put as head of Israel? No strong foreign leaders would view America as serious, sending Cam to meet with them. I mean, so when you look at the book of Judges, Deborah was put for a time, if I'm not, any theologians or biblical scholars could correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly, I know that Deborah for a time was put up as a judge over Israel. And in fact, whenever she told Barak that he was to take 10,000 men into battle, he was afraid and said, I won't do it unless you, Deborah, come with me. And Deborah told him, okay, I'll come with you, but you won't get the honor. You won't get the credit for having won the battle. The credit will go to a woman, right? So it's actually a curse. And I think this kind of circles back to your point, Chris, that it's actually a curse for women to kind of get this credit for a nation being great. Because at the end of the day, at least as it pertains to Israel and as it pertains to our individual lives, post ascension, God is the one that gets the glory, irrespective of who it is that's in charge of the nation. So I'm hoping that makes sense. Got a $5 super from Chris again. He said, literally facing World War III because of Dems, but white supremacy. Russia invaded 3 countries under Democratic presidents. Why do U.S. women love weak men in leadership? It's a very good question. Thank you for the super. Appreciate it. Got a one for Shelly from Shelly Day. $10 says they have no solution, just speeches. She's talking about the Democrats and the liberals and the Marxists who complain all day. Cruise Missile, $5 super sticker. Thank you. C Arc, $20 super sticker. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Willie Stick, $2. Often activists use the insults or use insults to demand compliance.
Yes,
this is true. This is part of their tactic, and this goes way back, where you discredit your opposition in the public square by accusing those who pose the biggest threat to you as being racist, homophobic, bigots, enemies of progress, such and so forth. You create these kind of slander campaigns against your adversaries so as to get them out of the way, so you will have then free reign to push your wicked ideology. Stephen Carter, great show as usual, fellas. Thank you. $20 super. Once again, Chris left a $5 super chat. He says race annihilation, but we just gonna ignore black women. 30 million 30 million abortions since 1965. you can't make this stuff up, right? Oh, but Trump wants to annihilate the blacks. Never mind Roe v. Wade. Never mind. Do you know? I know he was a sitting Supreme Court justice, but I don't know if he put forth a decision on Roe v. Wade. Thurgood Marshall. I know in 1973 Thurgood Marshall was
you know what?
on the bench, but I don't know whether he put forth a decision on that particular case. Do you know?
I'm gonna look that up because I think I remember reading. They're trying to give him some credit for it. They were trying to make the racial tie of why it was a good thing.
If it had 9 decisions, then Thurgood Marshall would have put forth a decision. But if it had 8, then he would not have.
Yeah, it says that he played a key role.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah, that's what it's saying.
Right.
He contributed to the 1976 case, which struck down parts of a Missouri law that restricted abortion care. I don't know about, because I think Roe v. Wade was 73, wasn't it?
Yeah, but he would have definitely been a Supreme Court justice by 1973. I think he became. Go ahead.
It said he favored. It's just hard to find some goodness. Let me see.
Let's see. Decisions for and against.
Thurgood Marshall, yeah. In fact, he wrote a crucial opinion in the case on gender equality that offers an alternative rationale for abortion rights at a time when the feminist legal movement needs all the help it can get to restore this fundamental right. It's saying he played a role. A few years later, Marshall was on the losing side of Mayer versus Roe, a case about the constitutionality of using Medicaid to fund abortions. In his scathing dissent, he attacked the ethical bankruptcy of the decision, emphasizing that the enactment's challenge here brutally coerce poor women to bear children whom society will scorn every day of their lives.
Okay.
I can't see what specifically. I'm gonna have to look into it, but
Okay, so let's see. I think I have it right here.
but
Let's see here. Says opinion of the court. Justice Harry Blackmun authored the opinion of the court. I'm reading from here. The majority opinion, and was joined by 6 justices: Warren Burger, Potter Stewart. Yeah. Okay. So I guess Thurgood Marshall was one of the individuals who basically ruled in favor.
Yeah.
Or ruled. Yeah. So again, when it comes to this annihilation of Black people, right? One of your heroes, Thurgood Marshall, basically permitted abortion in these United States, and there were millions of Black babies murdered in the womb since that decision was made and prior to the decision being made. And so, let's not pretend that Trump wants to annihilate black folks with qualified immunity because that's just not the truth. That's just
Right.
not the case at all. So let's see here. Let's keep it moving. We got one from our Canadian friend, Khalil Abdul Malik. He says, thank you, CTTC family, Chad, Blanche, Chuck, and Quisha for spreading the truth. Therefore, this is from Ephesians chapter 4, verse 25. Therefore, each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully. Blessings to you all. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Khalil.
Super sticker from Alethea 846. Thank you. $5. $5 again from Mike Martin Towns. Super sticker. Thank you. Eddie Brown, $5 super chat. Love you, brothers. Thank you for your work. Homeboy. I love it when Chad talks like the Blickities. I mean, he did look like a homeboy or speak like a homeboy, right? I only use the rhetoric when when it fits. Zachary G, $10. He says, or he's quoting, he says, I work, I pay taxes, I come home tired, and then the white man holds me back. Now you expect me to raise my kids? This was my suggestion to Steve Harvey for the plot of Think Like a Man 3. I mean, but the fact is, unfortunately, many blacks will eat it up and sympathize with it and resonate with it.
Yeah, Mike Jones just said he doesn't see he doesn't believe the statistics on black women having abortions.
Okay, well,
you know, I've had a few myself, and it was with black women. So, and I know I got family members that had multiple. Like, it's just, I don't know very many black women that have not had an abortion. Honestly, just be honest with you, I don't.
Right. Rick Hampstead says he left a $10 super chat. It says, always a great show, great chat family. God loves you all. Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. I got one from Willie Doc, $5. Would love to see a show with Chad, Chuck, Blanche, and Eric July, Young Rippa. He's the comic. Is that the proper word for somebody who makes comic books?
Who?
Anyway,
Eric July is a comic.
Yeah, he's the creator of the Rippaverse, the comic books, discussing anarcho capitalism, entrepreneurship, and communism. Thanks. Yeah, I have connections with Gothics, and I know she's really good friends with Eric July. I appeared on a couple of shows, some news shows on the Blaze media network with Eric July. So that actually wouldn't be a bad idea. That wouldn't be a bad idea at all. Mountain Woman, thank you, Mountain Woman, for being here. Always good to see you in the chat. She left a $2 super sticker. Thank you. Michelle Macon, member for 3 months. She says, female leaders are a pronouncement of God's judgment. Yeah, this is true. This is true indeed. And then last one from Michelle Macon, $5. Yuri Bezmenov said, until socialism crushes the balls, then will truth be received. And by then it will already be too late.
It's too late. Yeah.
Unfortunately. So anyway, let's play one more clip before we call it a night. Was there any clip in particular in the montage, Blanche, that you saw that you want to that you want to address?
I mean, now you can pick one because I'm trying to think. Oh, how about the one with the LGBTQ guy and talking about Trump as a criminal?
Oh yeah. What gave you the impression that he was LGBTQ?
Oh, just by the cut of his britches. Yeah.
He had that way about him.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Let me see if I can find it. See if I can find it.
The cut of his britches, the lightness of his loafers, you know.
The fact of the matter is that we have a criminal running for president of the United States. And none of your black asses, if you had that many charges, would be able to run for anything. You wouldn't even be able to get a job at McDonald's. So, like, let's just stop the games. Let's stop the BS. Donald Trump is a criminal. He has been found criminally liable in several courts. He has a case that's still pending in the state of Georgia. I've run for office before, and one of the first things they tell you is you cannot call election officials and ask them for more votes than the other guy. It's really against the law. He said, I need 11,574 more votes than the other guy. Come on, because black folks have been what? Black folks have been criminalized on less evidence. So why are we even entertaining this?
Well, I do want to
really is insulting our intelligence. No, it's really insulting our intelligence.
Yeah.
You insult your own intelligence or lack thereof. I think you're right, Blanche. I think he is of the agenda.
Yes.
He has a certain.
He's a chairman and a poke person. Excuse me, spokesperson.
What are your thoughts on what he was saying?
I think that if that conversation is listened to in its entirety, you will see that Donald Trump did not demand votes that weren't his. If you listen to the recording, the problem is that the media, like they always do, they take a piece of what he said and just run with it. But what he's saying is untrue. And then I would tell anybody to actually just look up what Trump has been charged with. You have to look up the actual laws, see what laws were actually broken, see what the people like. You got to look into this stuff. Again, the Department of Justice would use as a weapon against Trump so that folks would have a platform to say he's a criminal. This was all, and keep in mind, if Trump doesn't want to run, they don't bring all this stuff. They don't prosecute him. Think about it. If Trump didn't run, you wouldn't even hear about this stuff. So clearly him running, they're doing this because he's running. If you really cared about the law being upheld, you would do it regardless whether he was running or not, but you're not. And so again, it's just more propaganda. It's just more talking points for low intellectual people. But again, I encourage anyone to actually listen to the recording of him talking about the votes and actually look into what he actually was charged with, look up the laws, see if a law was actually broken according to the law, listen to what the people that were accusing him, listen to all of it. And I guarantee you're gonna walk away like, wait a minute, this is crazy.
Right.
But just know, people, if they can do it to Donald Trump, that means they can do it to you very easily.
Mm-hmm.
So all of you all cheering and celebrating and bringing it up, just know when this regime, you all want this communist America, you do know in a communist America, if someone tells the government that you're against communism, they're not going to ask you any questions. Just let you know they're not going to come to you and say, we've heard that you all have been anti the state. Is that true? No. They're going to already assume that the person telling them is telling the truth. So I'm just letting you all know that what make you laugh now will make you cry later.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. Like they just kind of lie so nonchalantly. You know, like even to the extent that he was getting pushback, he was like, "No, you can look it up." It's like you're inviting people to look something up that you know they're not going to look up,
right?
And you isn't that something? I mean, to be fair, he probably didn't say look it up, but you see the blacks all the time saying you could look it up, knowing full well that people aren't going to actually take them up on that challenge and look up what the false claim that they're actually making. I think that says more about black culture.
It does.
Than the fact that they're lying, right? That the person who's speaking is lying. The fact that you can get up there and lie so confidently and so nonchalantly and so cavalierly and then follow it up by you can look it up. I mean, I don't know, that just strikes me as very jarring, just as it relates to black culture. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they know that black people are not just low informational voters, but also non-due diligent voters as well, which means they are, not only is it just non-informed, but they won't even look to be informed. This is why they spend so much time and energy into making the emotional argument for Black people. They don't make the policy argument. They make the argument of appeal to someone because they're either going to be against Trump, they're either going to be Black. There's always some emotional tie to why they want you to vote. But they know, like everybody knows where the Black voter is. I think Mike Jones is an example of this new Black voter that says, I'm not going to vote. But I don't even believe that, though, because I know that Mike Jones, from now to November the 5th, is enough time to propagandize his little mind to go vote for Kamala Harris. I mean, he's not going to be able to sit at home after all this propaganda is around him, people telling him, women telling him, he's seeing, he's going to go vote for Kamala Harris. But because I just know that he's not an informed person. He's informed on propaganda, service level, but he's not really an informed person when it comes to making a decision like who's better for the country. So hopefully he emails you and you all can have a discussion on the show, but I imagine he'll be coming from a very emotional, beta-like position. And he probably doesn't believe in God either, just based on the way he's talking. So I don't know. Yeah. I think it'd be good for him to come on the show just to, get a little bit of word with some truth, political truth.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we're at a point now where we can close out the show. Looks like I got a couple more supers to get to. But before I do that, I guess let's I guess put a bow on the show and on the subject that we were talking about this evening, Blanche, in this tug of war over the so-called Black male vote. What do you think will be the outcome this November? Do you think that Black men in America will shock the country by voting somewhere around 20% for Trump? Or do you think that they will kind of resort back to their old ways, basically acquiescing to such negroids as Steve Harvey and D.L. Hughley, Roland Martin, and others who are trying to slap them back into line? Get back in line, boy. Make sure you stay there. Do you think that they'll acquiesce, or do you think that they will suddenly grow a spine and dare to break away from the Democrat Party come November? And we're talking, of course, about 20%.
No. I think that 17% that the guy said is probably going to be the highest. If anything, it's going to dip because now the propaganda is going to be increased on the Democrat side, and the tactics will be more diabolical and devious. So I don't foresee Black men, getting a backbone in the face of adversity. The backbone would have been created years ago. You just don't face adversity. Reveals character, it doesn't build it. So I think that 17% the guy spoke about is the highest that Black men will be at. Again, this was a tricky vote for Black men because Black men were kind of, breaking away from this, what they call the plantation. But when they put Kamala in there, it was a Black woman. That was the Black man's Achilles heel. And a Black woman in charge is what he's used to. His mama, his girlfriend, his wife. So her being in power isn't seen as a threat to the Black man. It isn't seen like off because he's used to Black women telling him what to do. So I think that 17% will be the highest it will be. No Black men won't shock anything. I think it'll be what it is, Chad, to be honest with you. I don't have any faith in the Black male voter. I don't. He's a sea urchin. Spineless.
My take on it is that I don't think that the exit polls will be accurate because I don't think we're going to have a fair election. I think that when it comes to certain counties, there's going to be a saturation of votes from so-called votes from individuals who don't exist that will so dilute the electorate to the point where you can't really tell who voted for whom. I think that's going to be my prediction. I think the jury is still out as to whether it will be Camilla who will be installed or Trump who will win. I think the jury is still out on that.
Okay.
And I echo what I said during the debate when we did that live stream last week. And when I echo what I say last week when I say this, that I think it really just depends on efforts that were made or not made in those counties like Maricopa and others. Whether efforts were made between 2020 and now to try to make the election more fair in those particular counties. If efforts were not made, we're going to see the same story again. If efforts were made, then it's going to be a little bit more difficult for the election to be stolen. But I don't know that I am going to trust the exit polls by virtue of the fact that you're going to have this kind of dilution from ballots that are not representative of real people. So, but that's just me. Okay, cool. So let's get into these last minute supers. We got one from Idra Singleton, $5 super sticker. Thank you. Got one from Eddie Brown. He says, $5. Have you heard of a black man named Thomas Calhoun Walker from Virginia, 1862 to 1953? Yes, I have. Seemed to be cut from the same cloth as Booker T. Washington. Yeah, and there's a lot of men in that era who are cut from the same cloth as Booker T. Washington. Gone are the days of the Booker T. Washingtons of the world. I don't want to say gone are the days. I think that's a bold statement. When I look at myself, when I look at Blanchard and Chuck, when I look at a lot of black men that I know personally, and some who are, I guess, more well known, I do see some remnants of people like Booker T. Washington who are still in existence. I know King Randall and what he's doing there in is it Athens? No, it's not Athens, Georgia. It's he's in Georgia, but I forget the town that he's in. It's on the tip of my tongue. I think it starts with an A. Anyway, that's not important. But yeah, I think when I look at young men like this, I think we still have some of that around. So let's see here. Tiara. I'm public school educated. I can't read. Tiara Thomas, $2 super sticker. Thank you. Really appreciate it. I don't think I've seen you here before, so welcome to the channel. Glad to have you here. Michelle Macon, $2 super chat, says just like their father of lies, the devil. Yeah, I mean, when you see these black folks sitting up there lying, it's nothing for them. They don't even see lying as a bad thing. They see it as useful to meet their end goal. They see it as the means that are justified by the end that they seek. And then we got one from Tiara again. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Thomas, she's $5. Tiara. Okay. She says, where did you find the info on Black Wall Street, Chad? A lot of it I found just through archives in many different places, including in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the archives that they have there as well. But I mean, a lot of it can be found online with the digitized archives that are available. When you look at, for example, and the kind of research that I do, or my method of researching, is to look at who are the key players in a given event. I want to look at the key players and look up their background. There isn't a singular place that you can go to and find information on the kind of things that I talk about. You really have to broaden your search. And it's the same way of doing an investigation in a particular case, right? The attorney is going to either hire investigators themselves or do their own investigating to look at all of the details to get a well-rounded picture or chronological events of what transpired up into a certain moment, what motives were, such and so forth. That's the way or the style or the fashion in which I research. For example, when you look up the article "Nab Negro for Attacking White Girl," I'm curious, okay, what was the newspaper that ran this article? Who was the editor of that article? The writer of that article. Oh, it's Richard Lloyd Jones. Okay, who's Richard Lloyd Jones? What's his, what's his deal? And what's his story? You look him up, you find out that he was part of the Universalist Unitarian Church, which was a common stomping grounds for communists and communist strategizing back in those days, back in the 1920s. He was a self-admitted progressive. His wife was a self-admitted progressive. They were in cahoots with Margaret Sanger, who was pushing her Negro Project. And so again, this information is available, and you look at somebody like a Richard Lloyd Jones. Okay, why would this man who is seemingly on the side of the black man writing an article saying nab Negro for attacking white girl, if not to rile up the whites to attack the blacks in this particular area? And then you read communist literature over here, and they're talking about disrupting black businesses and black towns that are making their way by capitalistic means. Why would communists want to disrupt these gains that are being made by capitalist means? Well, they want for the blacks to need them. And if the blacks are basically making their own way through free market enterprise, they are demonstrating that they don't actually need the unions, that they don't actually need the talented 10th, that they don't actually need the communists. And so you try to find clandestine ways to disrupt those enterprise gains that are being made. You throw the rock and hide your hand, and then you come along magically from the sky and say, we, the communists, we, the NAACP, have an answer for all this race turmoil that you're experiencing, really, when it was them all along. And so, again, this is very complex stuff, but you really have to really broaden your scope to research this stuff. So my apologies that I can't, point you to a single book. But part of researching seriously, doing serious research, is knowing where to look and knowing who to look into as you are coming across this information. So hopefully that information helps. Blanche, are you going live tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay. What are you going to be talking about?
I don't know yet, but it's probably going to deal with the black church as it relates to what's going on with this election.
Cool. Okay. So I'll be actually going live on Tuesday, and I'll also be talking about the black church. I'm going to be, I don't know if it's going to be my last week dissecting James Cones's book, My Soul Looks Back, or if it's going to be the second to last week. So I'm going to be rounding that out on Tuesday, and I think I might be going live Thursday as well. So before I let you all go, I did want to, for those of you who will be in or around Baltimore on, when is it, the 18th? Let me put this up on the screen real quick. So I've been invited to be a keynote speaker for the ladies over at Pop in Politics. They are putting together an event in Baltimore, and they asked me to come be a speaker. I put the link up on the screen for those of you who want to buy tickets to that, and it's also pinned on YouTube for those of you who want to go there. Let me see if I can pull it up on the screen real quick. Okay. So this is the website for tickets. February the 18th, that's a Friday, from 7 to 10 p.m.
October
Eastern
18th.
time. I'm sorry, October 18th. I'm tripping. So yeah, Friday, October the 18th, from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern. And it's going to be at the Old Major, which is a kind of a lounge bar type situation. 900 South Carey Street, Baltimore, Maryland. Even if you are one of my defectors, my detractors, there you go. Even if you are one of my detractors, I'd love to see you. I know I have a few there in Baltimore. Come say hi. These are the ladies here. Our friend Crystal Jenkins, she used to be part of this group, but she is now independent. So
they added somebody else.
Did they?
That girl in the denim outfit? I don't remember her.
Oh, her?
Yeah, I don't remember her.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited. It's been a minute since I've been to Baltimore. So last time I was there in West Baltimore, it reeked of piss. So let's see if that's changed since then. Anyway, so yeah, like I said, the link is up over on the screen. So love you all. Hope you enjoyed the show. Yeah,
Hold
go
on,
ahead.
Chad, before you close out. One of the viewers on Instagram said that you should go to Cantonsville and Elliott City in Baltimore. She said she said go to Cantonsville and Elliott City. It should be a real treat for you.
I'll write that down. I'll make a note of that. It's going to be a quick turnaround trip. I don't know. I'm texting back and forth with Vince Everett Ellison, who's up in Virginia. I think what I would like to do is leave from Baltimore and go straight to Virginia and do a sit down interview with him.
Oh yeah,
and post that on my YouTube in the next few weeks. So I'm trying to get that set up. So anyway, I love you all. Have a good night. God bless.